Aloha dreamers, it's time to wake up once again. This is Brendon, and you are tuned in for another exciting live broadcasted recording of Paradigm Shift Dream Class. Thank you so much for tuning in, and of course we are joined here tonight with some fellow amazing shifters, some conscious dreamers from across the world who are here with us. So let's all unmute our microphones and say hello to the beautiful people tuned in tonight. Hello, hello, beautiful people. Hello. Oh my God, you're so beautiful. Yeah, I love you guys.
Good evening, Internet.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning into this. And of course, if you are new to this project, this is a very exciting sacred space that we create here through the internet. And this is all about conscious, co-creative conversation to be able to explore the topics related to dream exploration, metaphysics, lucid dreaming, dimensions, infinity, and beyond. And of course, you can check out more at the main website, paradigmshiftcentral.com, to tune into previous broadcasts of the Paradigm Shift Dream Class, as well as all sorts of other broadcasts that we have in the community, and all sorts of amazing things through the network that you can use, and you can use to create your own quest journals and share your own conscious media and document the spiritual perspective from your spiritual journey from your perspective. So like I said, with the topic of this class is really about creating a space where we can practice talking about dreams. And this is the 4th or 5th dream class that we have been doing since we officially started it. And every week it's neat to be able to come back to see where the conversation goes, to check in, to see where progress has developed, and knowing that this is a class to be able to help encourage each of us to bring more awareness into our dream practices. And of course we'll be talking about why we want to do that. Why do we want to bring more awareness into our dream practices, and why dreams are something to be interested in general, and what we can learn from them, and how they teach us more about our multidimensional nature within this reality. So to begin, we'll go around the circle and we'll get people to just introduce themselves, to say hello, and to share a little bit about what brings them to dream class. So with that said, just from left to right, I'd like to be able to pass it over to Harmony if she's okay with that, and then we'll go across the board from there. So Harmony, if you would like, please introduce yourself and what brings you to Dream Class today.
Hi, my name is Harmony, and basically what brings me to Dream Class is sharing my experiences with like-minded kindred spirits, and also gleaning some information from you guys, and hopefully put together some more of our puzzle that we are putting together. That's what brings me here.
Awesome. Thanks, Harmony. Thank you so much for tuning in. And yeah, if you don't mind just muting your microphone when your microphone's just got a little bit of extra static, FYI. Perfect. Cool. And yeah, okay, so let's keep going around the circle. And FYI, for those of you who are tuned in, please feel free to share the show right now. In the background, that's what I'm doing. I'm just helping get the word out about the show. So if you are one of the people tuned in live, let your friends know. And if you're tuned into the future, then of course, always reminding you to be able to share this show and other shows with your friends. So we'll pass this talking stick over to Justin, aka Icarus Kid. And go ahead, Justin, introduce yourself and what brings you to Dream Class. And we'll just give Justin a second there to check his microphone, and if it's not working, then we'll just pass it over to Kyle, and we'll do that. So Kyle, we'll let you jump in, and Justin can jump in a second. So Kyle, go ahead. You can introduce yourself next.
What's going on, everybody? And tuned into the Dream Class right now. I'm Kyle. Been with this program for a little while. Just really enjoy what Brendon's doing, and I decided to get involved with it myself. It's kind of like felt a natural calling to it, as it's just sort of part that has now become a piece of the universe that has now become highly integrated into my life, and I like it. I think it's awesome. So yeah, that's why I'm here. And here in Dream Class, per se, exactly, I don't know, me personally, I have a hard time recalling my dreams. I guess I know that I go there, I know what happens, but recall is the issue. Sometimes it just takes me a while to, sometimes I try and focus on it in the morning, but I do have I do have trouble recalling my dreams, and so I guess that's one of the big things I try to get out of dream class is I come here with an idea that maybe something that we go over can help me recall my dreams a little better.
Cool, definitely, and that's something that yeah we usually bring up within this conversation, are just different some of the practical aspects related to how we can be able to remember our dreams more. And I mean, yeah, we'll go over those throughout the broadcast. But again, if people are new to this, definitely go back and check out previous broadcasts, because you're always going to find unique conversations and tips and tricks within that. But we will intend to cover some of the basics within this class as well. And I know one of the popular topics we're always getting into is like, yeah, what are some of the ways that we can better recall our dreams? And one of the ones that I always go back to is the yin and yang push and pull between those who choose to work with cannabis and the effects that that has on dream recall. So if that's something that relates to you, then stay tuned, because we'll talk more about that as well, and also get in some personal experiences also. So cool, thanks Kyle, and we'll pass it over to Justin. Justin, did you want to check in, see if your microphone's working, and if so, please introduce yourself. And we'll give him a second there. Justin, if you can hear us, maybe just try rejoining the hangout if for whatever reason it's not working. So we'll keep moving along, and we'll pass it over to Matthew. And Matthew, welcome to Dream Class. Please go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what brings you to Dream Class.
Good evening and good morning, wherever you guys may be. A lot of you guys may know me on the internet as the Mystic. I am a energy channeler and a facilitator of what's called one's highest self. That would be their highest consciousness. I got pulled into the class by Kyle to I would presume help to facilitate you and to help bring better understanding to what we all know as lucid dreaming, dream recall, which we all know is nothing more than another reality. So that's what brings me here.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Matthew, for being here. And yeah, this is the first chance that we've actually had the opportunity to get into conversation. But I mean, just based on your introduction there, I look forward to being able to be able to converse. And obviously, you have a lot to share on this topic. So thank you again for joining here. And yeah, we'll definitely get right into this. And once we get through the introductions, we'll open the talking stick ups, and we'll even just open it up to any questions that people want to ask for the group, and we'll let the conversation unfold as it needs to. So thank you again, Matthew. And Michael will pass the
My
talking.
gratitude.
Thank you. And so next on around the circle, we'll pass it over to our good friend Michael Brazel, who's one of the veterans within the Paradigm Shift community, who a lot of you are familiar with. And Michael, good to see you again. Thank you so much for being here, and please introduce yourself.
Absolutely. So I'm Michael Brazel, for those of you who don't know me. I am a practicing witch, and I study and practice the Anderson Fairy tradition of witchcraft. I am an intuitive medium, a blogger, a yogi, a wanderer. I'm here because Skull asked me to be here. And I'm glad. You know, it's always great to talk about dreams and dream work and the power that our dreams have to impact us. And just recently, I started doing, I took a course in certification in past life regressive hypnotherapy, and to see the power that even our past lives can impact and intersect with our dream world, and what that means to us in our conscious everyday living has been a pretty interesting new thing that's been happening in my world. So there you have it.
Cool, awesome. Well, thank you again, Michael, for being here. And yeah, I'd love to get some of the yogi witch perspectives on why dreams are important within the conversation. So cool. Okay, so we'll keep going around the talking, keep passing the talking stick around the circle. And next within the circle, we have our friend Sherman, who has recently entered the circle. So Sherman, within our introductions, please feel free to introduce yourself and what brings you back to Dream Class. If you're just double checking if Sherman may or may not have their microphone working. So Sherman, if you are there, feel free to jump in at any point. And that said, we'll continue to go around the circle. And KJ will pass it. I'm not sure if you're there actually, because I know you were just tuned in. But if you are there, aka the Wisdom Lover Experience, if you would like to join in and introduce yourself, please feel free. But if not, then that totally just means that you're listening, which is absolutely totally cool. So it looks like that's the case, but that's all right. So again, Sherman, feel free to jump in at any point, and I know Justin was probably going to rejoin in a bit. But yeah, let's just open up the talking stick to things within dreams. And does anybody want to begin with anything that they might want to ask the group related to dreams? A basic one that I can ask for you guys is, does anybody want to share any recent dreams that they have had that in some way they were able to recall or they felt had some significance to them? And there's something I can share related to that, but I'll go afterwards. So has anybody had any what they felt were meaningful dreams, or just even any sort of basic recall that they want to practice sharing within this conversation? Feel free to jump in at this point. So Kyle, go ahead.
One thing I can tell you, it's been difficult for me to recall some dreams and stuff, but there was one in particular that was very cool. There was part that really stuck out that I remembered very vividly, and that's I was sitting in a chair, like, not really like in a jungle, but in a woodsy area, and this huge black panther like came out of the bushes and like stood on top of a rock, and like I was scared for a second, but I could sense no danger or harm or anything like that. And it just climbed down from the rock and like came over by me and actually like kind of sort of like I was in a chair, you know, and it sort of like crawled underneath the chair through my legs. I was like, what? It was crazy. So that's obviously like a totem or something I haven't fully researched into, but that was a cool sign, I guess. It was very, very interesting one.
Yeah, did you have any like feeling associated with that dream? Because I mean, it's oftentimes that we've talked about this before, but like if we can like associate how that dream made us feel, then sometimes that can give us like more direction and insight.
Very empowered, because seeing this beast, you know, this majestic creature, in the way that it was presenting itself, it was very, you know, like I said at first, it was frightening and startling, but then it was actually very calming to be in the presence of. So, you know, I was very intrigued and awe-inspired. There was inspiration about it, about the feel. It was inspiring and kind of an uplifting event, you know, being in that area and being in the presence, like, and feeling calm with the beast or whatever, and it was very inspiring. It was brought a lot of, I guess, like, courage.
Yeah, I think that in itself is a great topic. The idea of like how dreams can evoke courage within like whatever it is that we experience within them. Does anybody, if at this point anybody else, just feel free to jump in. You know, if ideas pop into your mind, or if anybody has any relative experiences that they want to share. But I think the idea of being able to like have acknowledgement of latent courage coming forth in our dreams is a very empowering thing. And I mean, yeah, you know, we always talk about the idea that like dreams are there to show us more of ourselves. They're there to sort of help us activate into more of who we are. And so it would make sense that, you know, every now and then, like from like the higher up perspective, dreams are going to give us these things to say like, hey, like, don't forget, you know, this is inside of you. Like, this courage is there. This courage is latent. And sometimes you need to be like faced with a danger, faced with a threat that may not always appear to you in the physical reality, but can come forward into the dream space that will activate, that will bring forth that courage. Like sometimes, you know, sometimes courage is like something that just like rises out of necessity, and it's not until that necessity is there in the first place that we sort of realize that the courage is already inside of us. Has anybody ever had any experiences that they'd like to share related to courage that they have felt within a dream, or like any sort of empowering dream that they would want to share, something that they might be able to remember? And we'll just give a second there if anybody wants to jump in. Possibly not. It's kind of, I know it's kind of like challenging sometimes, where it's just like it's like hard to even always recall like all the dreams we have. But I mean, I'd like to think that in some way, like all of us have had dreams where there have been like varying degrees of courage. But again, we're not always going to be able to directly remember them. But yeah, if anybody else wants to jump in related to the topic of like why dreams sort of present themselves the way they do, like do you guys feel that dreams are like presented to us for the purpose of us being able to activate more of ourselves, and how have you noticed that within your own relationship to your dreams? Go ahead, KJ, Wisdom Lover, if you'd like. Or is that?
Say, I will chime in.
Okay, go ahead, Matthew, and then Wisdom Lover, if you want to jump in afterwards, feel free. But Matthew, go ahead first.
There, many people nowadays are starting to. I've noticed a lot of people coming to me, talking about their dreams, and what's happening is the reality that we are in now is very different from the reality that we were in 5 years ago. Okay, as far as a humanity collective goes. In dealing with trying to interpret dreams or bring the dream state into your now, the now moment is always and always has been the permanent state of existence. Okay, that's a completely different topic, but we'll stick with what we're talking about, the dream state. The more people that try to interpret their dreams and bring understanding, they're going to be drawn towards other people in the collective as they start to open their awareness as well. Okay, I've noticed. Let's say I've noticed many people are bringing to the table, well, their highest fears, their deepest expressions, their things like that, and they're no longer really afraid to attack it like you had mentioned. Okay, because that's what happens is our highest self tries to interact with our physical self so that we are able to overcome the dream. And many people these days are coming to that awareness that there's more to my dream than just a dream. Follow me? And then they're trying to put the two together. There's more to my reality than what I perceive, and that's brought out today. That's why a lot of people have been drawn to the paradigm shift. That's why a lot of people have been drawn to research and search their own identity. Who am I? Your dreams will help you understand the true who I am. So when it comes to facing fears and trying to interpret dreams and dream recall, that is not a really easy task. That's something that you've got to work at every day, day in and day out. But it's up to the individual.
For sure. Does anybody want to go in response to anything Matthew said? Feel free to jump in, like opposed to just like jumping on the microphone myself. If anybody else wants to jump in, but You guys are quiet tonight. Again, guys, just reminding us that this place, the space that we use for this, is a good place. It's really just all about practice. So I mean, no pressure, guys. And again, just kind of popcorning. Yeah, that's the right word. Popcorning ideas around, and just like having fun with it. But I mean, yeah, like I'm not hesitant to get really into some multidimensional stuff related to this. And I mean, one thing that I do want to talk about within this broadcast is my recent experience working with 5 grams of sacred mushrooms, and how that actually, for me, really brought in more awareness as to like what the dream space is, realizing the correlation between like this reality and the dream space as like one continuous thing. Like it's literally not this idea of like there's the waking state and then there's like the dream space, and they're two separate things and they're not related. Like they're literally one of the same things. They're part of like a single gradient. And like within the experience that I had working with like 5 grams mushrooms, it was like blatantly obvious for me that like it was, it felt like I was in a waking dream. And that wasn't just, and that's something that other people who do mushrooms might just sort of say like that in a way that they think they're crazy. They're just like, there's like, oh my God, I can't tell if this is real or not. And they think it's like a side effect of the quote unquote hallucinations. But I think that that's actually because like, we're dissolving the perception that sort of convinces us in common waking reality most of the time, that this is like its own solid state. Like the waking life is like a very like consistent solid thing. The dream space is like a separate thing, but they're actually like honestly like one in the same thing. And it's a very and it seems as if there's like only a very fragile thing that is preventing them from just becoming from like this waking state, literally on just like turning into a dreams experience. It is kind of hard to explain, and I know, and I'm gonna take some more practice to it. But yeah, like if anybody else has anything they want to say or jump in on, I think Kyle, did you want to jump in on anything? Yeah. And I was just gonna say, Matthew, if you can just mute your microphone when you're not talking, and then just open your microphone when you have something to say, and I'll just help facilitate it that way. That's fine. Kyle, go ahead.
That thin veil is like a foil. It's like 2 little membranes rubbing on each other, and there's like an electrical current, that keeps them together, and that's what you pass through. It's like a very thin layer of like void or something when you go to sleep. That's what you pass through. So those places that are separate that you're talking about, that when you go where that specific element takes you, you're getting closer to that veil, and you're sort of existing in an overlapped version of it. And that's one of the things that I think is one of the reasons that I can't exactly remember some of the dreams that I'm having, is because in my waking state it's become so quote unquote lucid that it's like it's just like dreaming isn't a thing. It's not necessary because that's what I'm doing right now. You know what I mean? That space is existent. Like it's hard. I think that's one of the reasons I can't remember my dreams, is because I'm so adept in being that close all the time that there's no need to recall a dream, because when I'm there and it happens, I'm just building another part of this reality. You know what I mean? Or maybe I've just kind of told myself that like recalling dreams is important right now. But I don't know, it's definitely what you were talking about those 2 frequencies. It's like, how are they so off? But like sometimes when you dream you could go really, really far away, and sometimes you could just go right next door. You know what I mean? So grasping on that is, I guess, a little difficult if you haven't been there in multiple different ways and seen those multiple different aspects of thought. Because when you indulge on something and you go to that level and at that dose, at that amount, that right amount, you go far. You go where it takes you. But where it takes you is an epicenter of knowledge and wisdom. And when you return with what you wish to see, with what you wish to seek. So it's like he could have gone there now, and the next time Brendon does that, he's going to come back with another set of knowledge. You know, like it's almost like it's different each time, but it brings you to the same place every time, same dimension, and that is just a higher level of thinking and process, and that is important to the whole dream aspect, because dreaming is just another level of aspect of thought process. It's just a higher level of being. You're not technically here because your body here is in rest. So when you sort of get to that astral place, that plane that's just right above where we are now, you know, it's just like another way of getting there. There's different ways to invoke this sort of portal, this gateway, but, you know, how you choose to do that would take you to a different place each time, I guess. Unless it's with a chemical, then it takes you to the same place with a different aspect of what your intention was at the beginning, first diving in.
Kyle, we're just going to pass it over. Harmony's got her microphone open. Harmony, go ahead, and thanks, Kyle. And yeah, that brings up a few ideas. So, Harmony, go ahead if you'd like to jump in.
Yeah, one fascinating thing about lucid dreaming to me is when we finally realize that we are in a lucid state and we go to that realization that we have more power than we normally thought we had in the dream state. For example, when we have a dream when we're kind of running from somebody or feeling like that victim mentality, and we are trying to get away, and our legs feel like they're in glue, or they're like you just can't move, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh, this is a dream, and then you get that empowered feeling where you know that because you know it's a dream, that you can actually manipulate the scenario that is going to be happening to you. So in other words, you're actually writing your experience. And I totally feel that that's a training, a parallel to what is happening in this waking state for a purpose to where we are able to overcome those limitations that are put upon us by programs of society and also by our own subconscious just programs of past lives and things of our environment as well. And then once we realize that we have that power and that we're able to do certain things in dream state, it also is empowering to the waking state for me, because I personally think, you know, if we can fly in dream state, then our DNA has that capability somehow in the waking state here in this reality, and also other types of interdimensional abilities. And I personally have a dream where I am running from somebody, and all of a sudden I realize that it's a dream, and I like flip up a black hole, like on the old cartoons. I don't know if you guys remember old cartoons where they actually flipped up a black hole into the middle of the wall, and then you would step through and you were in a totally different place. And I've had dreams like that, and then I remember the cartoons, and the more I put the pieces together, the more I realize that we have these abilities in this waking state. and just waking up more and more every day. And with each dream, we become more lucid, really, what I think.
Yeah, I'll just respond to that real quick, Harmony. I think that's a beautiful point that you make. Like the idea of like, yeah, like things we can do within the dream space are teaching us about things that we can do in the waking state, and waking state is teaching us about things that we can do in the dream space. And I mean, there's a whole topic there that you talked about, you know, like with the black holes and how we can use that to like go through portals and everything. And this is stuff that comes up in like even like the Tibetan Book of the Dead, when they're talking about like, you know, bodies traveling in like the astral planes after they've died. And this is something even if people see in the movie Enter the Void, which is about like a spirit, literally from a first-person perspective, kind of traveling beyond death. You see a lot of that where they kind of like go into those little holes and it takes them through places. And I mean, there's a whole conversation there that I'd love to get into about like the things that we can do within dreams. Like I feel like we're in the process of kind of remembering an instruction manual as to how to operate within the dream space. And there's literally like these little like tips and tricks and almost like not cheat codes. I mean, you could call them that, but like console commands and like all these little like things that we can do that help us navigate the space a little bit differently. And one thing I actually wanted to ask you guys in general, there's a couple things I want to. Okay, I'll just say one thing real quick, and then I just have a question for the group. And again, if anybody else has any other questions, feel free to jump in. But with something that Harmony was saying, how what it reminded me of is that within the way how the dream space works, it's very instantaneous in terms of like the things that come at you are actually the things that you like have asked for, but you may not fully remember it. But then sometimes the dream will actually check in with you to like show you like what's coming at you and be like, do you still want this? You know, it's like, is this what you still want? And then like before it officially like integrates itself into your reality, you have the opportunity to check in and to be like, yeah, that's what I want. Or like, no, wait, I changed my mind kind of thing. And this is kind of like even going back to like law of attraction in a way. And I feel like this waking state, we notice that when we start getting into ideas of manifestation and things like that, where like reality is literally like returning our orders back to us. But before they officially come to us, we still have like even that last second to sort of decide if we want to change our mind kind of thing. Which is very interesting relative to just like the way how lessons come at us and our ability to like shift our lessons and create new lessons for ourselves. So I mean, there's probably more stuff to say on that, but one thing I was just going to ask specifically, because I was again going back to my experience working with like 5 grams of mushrooms and other topics related to this, is related to the technique of using sound vibration and how powerful of a thing that is within this waking state and within the dream space and within the psychedelic space. And again, you know, it's because it's all one and the same, like in the sense that, you know, the dream space is like showing you like the psychedelic space is like showing you a place, it's showing you what's there, and the dream space is showing you a place, and the waking state is showing you a place, and it's all just like different ways to get there. But with the use of sound vibration, like internal sound vibration, like mantras and ohms and things like that, they actually have the ability to like affect the way in which you traverse the multidimensional realms, like the hyperdelic realms, the inner space. And so, I mean, I was going to ask if anybody has ever had any experience of working with mantras consciously within a dream, and if so, what happened when they did? Because that's something I'd love to be able to experience firsthand. Harmony, go ahead.
Personally, I have not had the experience, but my mom had a dream that she told me about, and it was really fascinating. It was a tidal wave dream, and we were all in this building like on a deck, and all of a sudden a tidal wave came through, and she goes, "Oh, it's time, you guys." And she's like, "We all need to put our hands together." And we put our hands together in the middle, and then we all did an ohm. And as we ohmed, all of the water started to raise up and go backwards up into the sky. And it just gave me chills when she described this. And then she said the sun came out and everything was fine. And that was her dream. That was pretty amazing.
That's beautiful. That's awesome example. Again, like that's one of the reasons for creating this dream class, is just to be able to like document some of the incredible examples of things that can happen within dreams. Yeah, does anybody else want to talk about any experiences they might have had using sound vibration, either within like the dream space or even within a psychedelic experience? I mean, that was something that I was working with my recent psychedelic experience, was like the different tonations, and even like Terrence McKenna talks about this, and you like reach like certain pitches and you close your eyes, and like those frequencies that you're creating actually carry your consciousness into like another level of the dream space. So again, talking about sound vibrations within dream spaces and just multidimensional travel in general. Does anybody else have anything that they want to comment related to that? Okay, Kyle, you got your microphone open. Let's just double check. Does anybody else want to jump in related to that, opposed to Kyle, just so we're getting some additional voices in here, or just like the benefits of sound vibration mantra work related to shifting consciousness in general? Does anybody want to jump in? Andrew, go ahead. We can let you jump in on this. And
Can you hear me?
welcome. Yeah, I was gonna say we can do a microphone check, and yeah, we can hear you, man. And welcome to the class. So
Cool,
go ahead,
thank
you can jump right in.
Yeah, so throughout most of Solstice, where we recently saw each other, I was chanting a Tibetan Buddhist mantra, Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisvaha, which roughly translates to awake, awake, beyond awake, far beyond awakening, aha, I've reached it, like awakenedness. So every spare moment of my time, I spent like walking through the trails in the forest chanting that. And near the end of the week, I was actually like on Sunday, after I did my shift, I took some mushrooms and I was sitting meditating. And finally, I got to this place where suddenly from the inside of and it was only like half a gram of mushroom, it's barely anything, barely enough to affect me. But like through the meditation, suddenly this light exploded from inside my head, and I just was sitting there closed with my eyes closed, listening to the music. But I had this like bright light, enlightening like my entire like inner vision, covered in multi-dimensional fractals and both Sanskrit and Tibetan like letters, just like swarming around me in circles, and like I could feel them in my heart as well.
Yeah, that's super cool, man. Just to check in, what's your experience in terms of dreaming? Do you have like decent recall or any lucidity experience?
I've always had extremely vivid dreams. Ever since I was a kid, I've had prophetic dreams, right? Like just like not prophetic dreams like intensely, but like I'll dream something that happens 2 days later. That's happened a few times. I used to be able to fly in my dreams as a child. I guess it would have been Mars, or sorry, Mercury. He gave me little wings on my feet that I could fly around with. But then I started playing trickster and going into people's houses and knocking paintings off their walls and stuff. And he got mad at me and took that gift away. So now the most I can do is kind of glide for like a few seconds, and I've never been able to fly again since that. It was like I was given this gift, but then I abused it. So then that gift was taken away, and I think I have to somehow prove myself to this this planetary consciousness of Mercury, who gave me this gift again. It'll happen someday. I'm not sure when.
Are you saying, or just to confirm, were you saying that like within your dreams you were like astral projecting and knocking stuff off people's walls? Is that what you were saying?
I was able to fly through. This was when I was like around 7, 8, 9, 10. I was flying through my whole neighborhood. I saw like the entire map of my neighborhood from above, and like later on, I figured out that was all correct. And then I was playing around with it for a while, and then I was able to actually go into people's houses and like almost be a poltergeist. So I was like knocking things off their tables and trying to play trickster on them. And the deity that gave me this gift was quite upset at me for abusing this talent, and took away that talent from me. I can still move around and astral project in my dreams. I just can't fly for more than about 3 seconds. I can kind of like grasp onto a building at a distance and then like pull myself into it, but I can't just zoom up into the sky anymore.
That's really fascinating, man, and thanks again for joining the conversation, because I mean, just that in itself really opens up a lot of other topics, and I'd love just to be able to ask you just another question, and then from there, anybody else just feel free to jump in as well. You were saying, you know, like that the idea of like another entity was in control of like the gifts that you had the privilege of using. Do you feel from your own experience that within the dream space, it's like a balance between our own personal development of skills as well as like this other factor related to intelligences and entities within the dream space that are sort of deciding like what we gain access to, when and how we do it, sort of thing, if that makes sense, and
Yeah,
what you think about that?
yeah, I think we have guides, and certain guides like aligned to maybe are like, oh, sorry, bye. Sorry, I had to say goodbye to somebody. Certain guides might align to like our natal chart of when we were born and the planetary intelligences and like zodiac energy that comes in when we were born in a certain place on a certain date at a certain time. And also we might have interactions with other beings that are more evolved than us and are at higher levels, maybe gods and goddesses or deities or planetary consciousnesses, and I think we can interact with them definitely, and they have a lot to teach us. And the dream world is somewhere that they can directly interact with us in a very, very profound way.
Definitely, man. Well, again, thanks for joining the hangout. And I mean, obviously, there's a lot more that I'm sure you'll be able to share as we continue the conversation. And even some of the things that, you know, again, with my recent experience with like working with like 5 grams of sacred mushrooms, the topic of deja vu became very apparent for me. And yeah, like within my moment of like being there, it was like so blatantly obvious deja vu for me, in the same way of like how we get premonitions within dreams. And so for me, it really opened me up into this idea of how this is how I was thinking about it, is that like, you know, you guys have heard me talk about the idea that we exist beyond the future. We exist beyond the present in a non-linear sense. And in that idea, it's like the future aspects of ourself exist within the echoes of the dream space, so to speak. And there are future realities, quote unquote, future realities, which are awaiting for us to arrive into. And we don't actually arrive into them until, like, the way how we arrive into them is through the physical body itself. So like the purpose of the physical body is to arrive into aspects of the future dream, so to speak. But yeah, again, like for me, like the idea that premonitions within dreams are a thing, and the deja vu was so blatantly obvious within a mushroom experience, just again points to me the idea that mushrooms literally help dissolve the boundaries, the illusions between what we think is the separation of this state and the dream state. It literally like makes the waking state into a more blatantly obvious extension of the dream space. Again, like I know, like words are. I'm practicing as best as I can to be able to explain this, because it's like getting into some very like hyperdelic stuff. But yeah, I'll try explaining that again another time. But yeah, like. Yeah, deja vu, dreams, psychedelics, it's all one and the same, man. So, but again, let's open up the microphones if anybody else wants to jump in. Matthew, go ahead.
I would love to ask you this specific question, okay? You in general, with all of your awakening process, and I'm not quite sure when it has begun, but how do you know the difference between physical isness and dream isness at this moment? How do you know whether you're physically coherent, conscious, and awake in general relativity to being, dreaming, aware, awake, and conscious? I'm asking you, what is the difference?
That's a great question to ask. But sorry, you're asking. You're saying we want. I'll give like a quick answer.
There you go.
And
for
then,
everybody.
Yeah, for everybody. My short answer would be is that, yeah, like there needs to be like an element of juxtaposition. There needs to be like something that we can compare to. Ultimately, like
hard, isn't it?
Let me think about that. Let me think about that. But Kyle, go ahead if you want to jump in on that.
Being present.
Yeah, I was gonna say
With
consciousness
where
of the
you
present
are
moment.
now. Yeah, consciousness of your present moment. But there is a subtlety to this one that makes it our primary. And I would say that's because this vibration, this frequency on this place is the one that we chose when we first came here. I guess you know the difference by in your dreams when you get hurt, you know that you're okay. When you get hurt, here you know you're not okay. You know, there's a difference. I think we all have vibration and frequency, and those are two very similar things, but very different things. I spent a lot of time deciphering in my own mind what these two different things were, but that is what the ultimate selection of where we sit right now is, and that's how you know the difference between now and dream state. Because when you're in dream state and you have that present of consciousness, there's still something that tells you you're in the dream state, as opposed to being here. You know you are here. You know what I mean? So it's almost as if it's just a very faint layer above, but we know that this is our primary because when we first chose to be here, we selected what frequency we wanted on what vibration and what star we wanted, what planet we wanted, what star that emits the frequency that we will receive here as our own little antenna. That's how it all works from interdimension to interdimension. Is a replica of your star somewhere else. As you know, we are stars, and as stars, we are the aggregate of experience. We just chose to be here, and this one. It's like if you have frequency A, B, C, D, E, and we chose that we wanted to be in frequency Charlie on this vibration. And it's like our personal vibration links to our star links to Earth vibration. That's like your CB channel radio knob, and from there you find your own little intermittent frequency that is your solo dolo, and that's how we get here, and that's also how we get there to the dream space. Is we ultimately go to our star, and then we go wherever else we go after that, and into whatever version of pilot you want to see.
What came, that is absolutely cool, what you just said. What came to my mind to even ask that question was a dream. Earlier you were asked about, do you want to share a dream, yada yada. A while back, I have a lot of our education comes from our dreams. I call it my educational process. That's where a lot of my information comes from. It was within that dream state. And it's very hard to differentiate between when you literally are focused. Your focal point of awareness is in that dream state. When you close your eyes, awareness that we know goes away. The world as we know it goes away. Okay. So I can kind of argue Kyle's point where he said whenever he and God, I love you, Kyle. Whenever you're in a dream, you know you're hurt, you know that you're going to be okay. Well, really, you don't until you are so scared to the point where you wake yourself up. Consciousness or your body wakes itself up, but until then, you really don't know because you're so focused on your consciousness is so focused on that specific frequency, that specific reality. You follow what I'm saying, Kyle?
Yes, actually I do, and that makes me think back to when I had the crazy dreams that I did when I was in the Army. When I was in the Army, I had a crazy dream.
Okay, I mean, bro, I wasn't going to argue your point. I mean, I love you. You know I do. And I
Yeah,
know
I
you
know,
are very,
bro.
very educated in this. But when it comes to the awareness of consciousness itself and relaying into dreams and what's real and what's not real, when we shut our eyes, awareness as we know it is gone. Consciousness itself is aware of its own self.
Not exactly
I
when
mean,
we close our eyes, but when you go subconscious, yeah. When you go to that
we
level of subconscious,
we
then
can only
yes.
understand that in which we see, hear, feel, smell, touch. Okay? When physical awareness goes away, when you are asleep, physical awareness is in a paralysis state, Kyle.
Yeah.
Okay? Physical awareness has gone into a paralysis state. Consciousness in amongst its own self is still aware of itself. It never will and never has shut off. And we are all a part of that and share in each and every one of our
Well, yeah,
secrets.
we just
It's
become tethered to the body at that point. It's just a tether, like I was saying, the frequency deal, and you go.
now you're talking silver cord stuff. That's astral
Yeah,
projection. That's another talk.
but no, it's the very same thing that happens when you dream. The astral plane and those planes are one and the same as well. It's just another level of aspect of thought. When you get to other realms and dimensions, you have to go through the astral plane to get there.
And now the question of questions. Okay?
So you're always tethered to this body.
We're talking
Because
substances too. Is the substance the barrier of physicality, or is it the barrier of non-physicalness?
what are we talking about? Dreaming right now? Or are we talking about being in a psychedelic trance?
What's the difference?
The difference is a chemical induced process as opposed to a physically induced process. Granted, they both take you to a similar realm, but when you're under the influence of a chemical, you're actually being awakened state sort of journey, as in you're softening the veil, you're allowing new ideas to come, new thought processes take place. As opposed to when you're dreaming, it's not a
But the substance, the
chemical.
tool,
It's when you go
Kyle.
into a dream state, it is different. I mean, they're similar, and they have a similar chord to them, but it is, I mean, ultimately the same space, but it's a different place. It all depends on where the individual is piloting. Like I can tell you, I've had dreams that seemed very vivid and real, and then something happens where, like, well, I guess you're right on one point about not knowing where you are, because there's been dreams where I've been completely shot to death, and I thought I was there in that space until I was totally gone from it and back in my own body. So I guess you're right. But as far as a massive psychedelic experience goes to, as opposed to being asleep in an intense dream, I mean, I'll say the places are very close next door to each other and can overlap. But I would also say the places that these different chemicals take you when you go there are completely unique to the molecular structure themselves. So they are in themselves individual spaces that you go to. It's almost like you're lifted up, and it's kind of like that Poppet game where you got to put all the pieces back together and just da 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 da. You get lifted up and everything tilts and you slide over here until everything settles back to normal. If you notice, when you're in a chemically induced trance like that, energy is a lot more physical. All things energy, especially in the summertime when it's warm outside and you can feel heat energy, everything, it becomes a fluid, it becomes an ocean. you can feel air and all these different things. When you go there, you're literally swimming and moving through this space, but it's a new aspect of thought to the same place that you are in, and bringing those ideas and manifestations in, it just opens a new gate to viewing yourself as a soul and other dimensions and worlds that are around you, but in a dream state, to be able to be induced into that level of unconsciousness and go there and live out that portion of you at that moment. I guess I would say those are two very different-ish places.
Yeah, there's a comment, Andrew just leaving in the chat. Andrew just dropped out, but he may be back. But he says, I would argue that the duality of chemical-induced process and naturally induced dream process are false. The only difference is the chemicals that your brain is creating and releasing. So I mean, again, like that for me, like it kind of goes back to this idea that like these chemicals are like the chemicals are helping induce these states, but ultimately they're on. KJ, can you just mute your microphone? I'm trying to mute it, but I can't mute it for some reason. Thanks.
Yeah,
Oh.
hey, I'm glad you can actually hear me, because for like the last
Okay.
15 minutes I've had a ton of stuff to say and I haven't been able to talk to you guys. But
Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, I was just going to say real quick, and then, yeah, KJ, you can jump in. Again, I know we've got a few different topics going around tonight, and tonight's conversation is definitely getting very wordy, I would say. Like, this is one that I think we're just getting into some, like, very, some very, like, again, like some of these topics are just like, damn, you know, like it's hard to put into words, and sometimes it's so subjective, and is there really an answer that we have, and sometimes it's all just best guesses, and you know, ultimately within the stream class I do want to be able to like bring it back to some of the basics and logistics and practical aspects of it, but again, so just taking a moment here, Andrew, I see you jump back in. I literally just read what you wrote in the chat, and I'll pass it off to you in a second, but again, you know, like what I was just noting upon is, and again, you know, like the reason for acknowledging this is the idea that, you know, with dreams, with psychedelic experiences, yes, there are these like extra chemicals that are like working their way through the brain, but ultimately, like, they're not. What they're doing is showing you what the brain is already capable of, which I think is important. It's not like, oh, this is your brain like on mushrooms. This is your brain on sleep. It's just like, no, this is your brain on brain. It's already like capable of these things, and then it's just like with these additional elements, it just like activates that part of it. And again, you know, like even if you're not like on the psychedelic experience or in the dream space, you're still actually like interacting with the world with with like the same elements in place, like in terms of just like your thoughts creating, and just like in terms of like how manifestation works. Again, you know, like I'm just, oh man, some of this is like so wordy. I'm honestly like a little.
I mean, I want to say one more thing.
Okay, Kyle, go ahead, and then
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
You can try and decipher as much as you want, I guess. I mean, I'll leave it at this. Whether or not they're two and the same or completely different, it's all the same house. It's just what room are you going into at that point in time. You know, it's like a semantic. You said it's getting wordy, you know, in the same fashion. Like, it's all the same house. It just depends on what room you go to. If you're in a chemically induced process, then you're viewing right now, then. And if you're sleeping, you're not here, you're somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's all the same house, it's just a different room that you're in.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I had something to say about psychedelics in there.
Okay.
That
Sorry,
all is.
Roman. I just before you jump in, I just want to check with Andrew, just because we had just mentioned his comment. So, but okay, so we'll go Andrew, then Roman, though. So.
Yeah, so basically, like, our brain is able to manufacture so many compounds. The basic one that most people know is melatonin. That is a tryptamine. It's very similar to psilocybin in its actual structure. Serotonin is almost identical to psilocybin. And our brain also manufactures pineoline, harmaline, and Dr. Rick Strassman believes that we may be able to manufacture dimethyltryptamine in certain states. These all just kind of plug into the receptors, which are almost like little ways that they plug into our brain, and they have little antennae on them, and they can almost tune our brain into different frequency ranges. So all these different chemicals that we have access to internally and externally through the world, that's just a brain-mind duality. And in the end, they're all the same, and they're just allowing us to tap into different places and different states and different frequencies, because our eyes can only see a certain range of frequency, our ears can only hear a certain range of frequency. Our brain can also experience quite an amount of frequencies and also emits a number of frequencies. That's why when you go to the hospital and you get an MRI, they're actually able to scan your brain electronically from the outside, because your brain is constantly emitting electromagnetic frequencies into the area around you. And these chemicals, what they do is they just work almost as antennae and allow you to change the frequency, like your head is a radio, and you can just change the frequency at which you're tuned into. And that would be what I'd have to say about that, yeah.
And Andrew, do you want to just maybe just how does that help us understand dreams a little bit differently? Do you think, like that concept? Does that help us understand what dreams are a little bit better?
So dreams are a psychedelic experience. Melatonin is the main dream hormone or chemical or drug, you could even say, and we can buy that at the drugstore. If you look at it chemically, it's very similar to a lot of hallucinogens, and it is a hallucinogen in its own self. It only works as a hallucinogen if we're asleep, though. So in that way, the dream experience is in itself a psychedelic experience. It is a hallucinogenic experience, and not to say that that's not real. These are all real, different facets of the reality that we exist in. They're just very different aspects than what we experience on a day-to-day basis. Mm-hmm. And through meditation, we can also change the way that our brain is putting out these different chemicals and frequencies and tune into different wavelengths as well.
For sure. Definitely. Well, thanks, Andrew. That's some good points to definitely hit on there, especially when we start getting into like the science and the commonalities between a lot of the chemicals. It does help us connect the dots. Again, you know, and I hope more of the world sees this, like in terms of just like being able to study dreaming, psychedelics, and how the brain works all under one roof. I really think in order to be able to understand all of them better, you really have to look at all of them as being related, opposed to being separate. Roman, we'll pass over to you, and then if anybody else has anything to say, feel free to jump in. I know we got a lot. This is getting pretty intense here, so
yeah.
Go ahead.
Totally agree with the whole connecting the dots thing, but as far as I've learned, through all out of what I've learned, things like ayahuasca, DMT, cannabis, mushrooms, they're all just kind of, when you take them, they enhance the chemicals that you already have present in your body. And that's the whole idea. So basically, like the melatonin thing, all DMT is doing is increasing the dimethyltryptamine in your brain, and boom, you have a crazy alternate experience of some worldly kind that we're still trying to figure out, some of us. Although myself, I haven't done any such things or had any kind of very vivid, crazy, explainable experiences, maybe just little piffs here and there. I can definitely say that the science adds up, and just like you were saying earlier, Andrew, about the antenna and the TV, like basically, way I like to think about life is life as in the just living is everyone's like a TV, but their consciousness is the TV signal. The TV signal origin of that is very hazy, but the TV is sort of like it's biological. Well, for us, it's a biological vehicle. So I think things like psychedelics and what they're used for, and in ancient times, I mean, shamans all over the place, and very wise old men used to use it all the time, and that's how they gained all their knowledge, most of their knowledge, basically. So, yeah, just that this plant, it's completely natural. They took it and it just enhanced something in their body, or just very amplified something in the body that they already had, giving them an experience on another existential plane or dimension or vibrational frequency of some kind. I'm still pretty hazy on the subject, but that's all I've got to say about it.
Mm-hmm. For sure, for sure. Thanks, Roman. Yeah, again, it's interesting to look at some of like the ancient cultures and just look at how they worked with some of these psychedelic plants or just psychedelic substances. But again, like I'm just thinking back to like ancient Egypt with like some of the initiation chambers, theoretically within like the ancient pyramids, which would just be like a dark room, and like theoretically you could like go in there and it'd be complete darkness, and you go in there and meditate, and that in itself would help like induce a natural like psychedelic state. But you could also like take psychedelics and go in there, and it would be like bringing even more things to the surface. There's a couple things I got in mind, but I'm just gonna let the microphone go around a bit. KJ, did you want to jump in with some stuff?
Yeah.
And then Andrew, if you got something to add as well afterwards, go ahead.
So, look, I got 1,000,001 things to say, so I'll just say one thing and just pass it. Well, a couple quick. Actually, I'll just make 2 quick points and then one thing to share. One is, yeah, you brought up the like Egyptians and the going into temples and whatnot. I mean, let's not forget, all of Hinduism had the soma plant. The road to Elysius, we're talking about, they had a ergot, a fungus ergot, right, which is related to lysergic acid. You've got the ayahuasca from the shamanic tradition of South America. You've got peyote from the Native Americans. I mean, every single spiritual wisdom tradition since the beginning of time has used in some form or another medicinal plants and different things to guide them on this journey. I really like a lot of what Andrew, I think, is saying, and also the energy channeler, I think Matthew. Both some very insightful people with some very insightful things. The thing I'm going to share and then pass it off is that I'll try not to sound too dogmatic about it, but basically it's like this. Like, usually people think that the analogy is that being awake is to being asleep, as being alive is to being dead. But ironically enough, once you've been down the mystic path long enough, you realize it's exactly the opposite. That in this life, we're really mostly asleep, and that it's in death that we're awake. So that in the fact, dreams are functioning, as many people have mentioned already, as out-of-body experiences, as sort of some people call astral projection, things like this. It clearly is an out-of-body experience, and it clearly is a death experience, because that's what death is, separation of soul from body. So that when you go back to the Tibetan Book of the Dead and you look at the transitions between the planes, like that's what every night that you go to bed and you watch for that transition between the liminal and the subliminal, right? The waking and the dream. And then what's interesting is that once you enter the dream world, that's where true life actually begins. So what's ironic is that you have to recognize how and then you want to bring that wakefulness into the waking world where you used to be asleep, right? That's what we call that waking dream. That's what we call sort of like bringing the lucid dreaming. Somebody else was mentioning a moment ago that, this is the dream. Like, once you recognize that you never fall asleep again and that you're always in that conscious state of awareness, which, by the way, the dream world is, I'll share this next point for another moment, but dreams play a very important functional role in that spiritual journey. But I wanted to give that analogy just for a moment, and I'll pass it for now.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Thank you so much for bringing that up. And I'll just hit upon one thing and then just passing the talking stick around again as well. Again, like I feel such like a simple paradigm shift that just really helps us understand dreams a lot more. And I know I've said it before, but for me, this is just something that makes sense, but it's the idea of understanding that dreams are actually like closer to the place where we are from, or you can literally say they are the place where we are from. Like, the physical world is a byproduct of the dream world. The dream world is not a byproduct of the physical world. So I mean, the dream world, like, again, the astral planes, call it what you want, like that is like, and this is a quick thing that sort of came to me. I feel as if like this origin of experience in which it is very much a dream space, and it's hyperdelic, and it's infinite fractals and hyperdimensional space unfolding infinitely upon itself. I feel as if like there is a part of the universe, like a gravitational pull, that is always pulling us back to that. It is always pulling us back to that. And then it is only through like the structures of our biological makeup that sort of create elements that not distance us, but prevent us from being susceptible to the immediate gravitational pull of the experience that connects us to this core reality in which things are incredibly hyperdelic. And then it's through the experience of dreaming and of psychedelics that we sort of like, again, you know, think of it as like pulling back the veil. It's almost like pulling out certain elements that prevent us from being affected by that gravitational pull, and then we're naturally pulled back into that experience. Yeah, and like I just feel like that if you think about it that way, like that we're always constantly being like pulled back into this hyperdelic experience, and that even correlates with like death. How at the time of death, you know, when people say it's like taking off a tight boot, it's like literally entering into a hyperdelic dream space. So it's like, you know, the entire time we were alive, it was just like we were just like pulling away from like this like source pull, and then once we die, it's just like that like someone, it's like pulling a slingshot or someone pulling an elastic band, and suddenly you just like let go of the elastic band, and it just like shoots right back to source, so to speak. So whether we're dreaming or whether we're taking psychedelics, it's like moments where we like let go of that elastic band, and that pulls us back to source. And the thing that's holding on to that elastic band, that's stretching us away from that source, is like like I said, like the biological makeup of this physical body that is created that way for a reason, in order for us to have these unique experiences. Again, that's kind of like a new way for me to even word it to myself, but it's just like another metaphor to try and make sense of this. But yeah, like that gravitational pull that's always pulling us back to source is something that's always there. And then even when you go into stillness, it seems that it arises as well. Which is something we can talk about later, the idea of like stillness evoking psychedelic experiences and how that plays into a role with just understanding things more. Andrew, go ahead. I know you got your microphone open, and then anybody else after that.
I just wanted to touch a little bit on the darkroom practice and how that still exists in some cultures to this day. There are a number of retreats in Tibet that folks can go to and spend like from 9 days to 3 months in complete darkness, and it's a very old Vajrayana tantric practice that's also practiced in Taoism. There's also an indigenous culture in, I believe, Colombia. They're called the Kogi, and their cultural lineage goes back to a pre-Columbian era. And they have sort of, they don't have shaman, but they have basically like priests for each group, and they select specific males like right as they're born. And by the way, they name Kogi. It means people of the jaguar, if that means anything to anyone with ayahuasca. They choose certain males at birth and bring them into these dark caves for 9 whole years. These children do not leave these caves, and they're cared for by the elder priests of their tribe. And it's 9 years before they see sunlight. And they're just taught the spiritual traditions of their culture in complete darkness with no light for 9 years. And then at 10, they're allowed to come out into the real world, into the light world. And that's their tradition of training their spiritual elders.
That's some good stuff, man.
That's amazing. I've never heard that before.
I think it's, I'll write it down, the name of the people. You can look into it in the group chat.
I was just going to ask you, and then again we'll pass it around. But why do you think they do that? Why do you think they choose to like work within the darkness?
I have a book stash somewhere, and there was a researcher that did a lot of research on the Tibetan practice of the darkroom process and what happens in the brain. So when the pineal gland is not exposed to any light for a certain amount of time, it ends up changing the chemical processes that go on inside of it. And a lot of people say what happens on like after day 3, the darkness is like no longer present, and then after day 5 they start to see this like white light all around them, and then after like a month or so they start to see just like they're embraced in white light, and they have these visions that come all over them. And it allows the brain to actually produce these chemicals that most folks have to consume externally through like psilocybin mushrooms or ayahuasca or other sacred medicines. And it allows the brain to actually create that pathway and allow us to connect to the darkness and go out of our bodies and learn how to astrally project. And it changes the way our brains work from like, so that the dream is integrated into daily life, so that there is no difference between the awake life and the dream life. They become exactly the same. And that's why they take these young children that they find that they recognize there's a spiritual gift in, and then bring them into darkness so that they can channel their powers and their gifts.
Yeah, even just what you said there, like when the dream space and this waking state like become perceptually one and the same, like I feel like that is, again, that is like actually what this shift in consciousness is about, is that more people are actually experiencing that. Like this is something that I had within my 5-gram mushroom experience. Like it was very visceral for me. I was like, holy shit, like we are the dream awakening. Like that is literally like what is happening. Like literally, like people are realizing that like this space and the dream space like are one and the same. And when we start realizing that they're one and the same, just different frequencies of the same source, then things get very interesting. And for me, again, it just goes back to our idea of learning to become better dreamers within the dream. And what I mean by that is better co-creators within this co-created dream, and obviously so much more. KJ, did you want to jump
This goes back to sensory. I just wanted to tell Andrew, like, this also goes back to sensory deprivation tanks, and I mean, sensory deprivation is obviously not a new tradition. In any type of dark cave, any type of sacred temple that you're entering into the sacred realms, into darkness, and everything else that Andrew just said is very, very appropriate. But it reminded me of who's the guy that wrote the book on sensory deprivation tanks?
That would be John Lilly.
John Lilly.
Yeah, Lilly. That's who I'm thinking of. Right. Yeah. So, anyways, I just wanted to say, yeah, I was just noticing that goes very hand in hand. Sensory deprivation, sacred temples in darkness, caves in darkness, and by the way, that sounds really profound as well, Andrew. That culture that you just mentioned in Colombia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, guys, there's a lot of conversations we could go in on, even, just like if people want to talk about sensory deprivation tanks as well. Those are great experiences, and again, something worth noting. But again, we'll just open up the microphone here, and Matthew, we'll let you jump in. Go ahead.
What Andrew's talking about, our ancestors knew. This was their culture. This was their heritage. Today, we understand this as what's called mind fractalization. It is cracking the shell. What happens is when they do this, it's like a lot of people think that they cannot see in the dark. That is absolutely wrong. They can see in the dark. And our ancestors were able to do that as well. What happens is the mind will literally rewire itself, and you are able to see infrared. You know that. When it comes to understanding astral projection and out of the body, when you are subjected to total darkness, again, the mind will fractalize, and your awareness goes outside of the known self. You're aware of yourself mainly because you feel yourself. You see yourself. But when you are able to see nothing is when you have to tap in, tune in, and turn on to that nothingness in which you see. That's why the mind fractalizes.
And isn't it interesting that this is like what happens when we dream? I mean, we are going into the sacred temple of darkness when we close our eyes. I mean, we are going into that darkness.
Well, what Andrew was talking about earlier about the substance, and this conversation is absolutely amusing. It's totally entertaining, so I appreciate this. When the brain goes down and shuts down into its sleep state, it produces melatonin. It does produce melatonin mixed with serotonin. it induces it kind of like, let's just say, it talks to the pineal gland, okay, through the synapse of your brain. The pineal gland, which is about the size of a raisin, produces dimethyltryptamine on a daily basis. So you literally are walking. I mean, you guys this is all scientific. What Andrew's speaking about, what we're speaking about, is scientifically proven. Dr. Straussman has got one hell of a good documentary on the internet, YouTube's, called DMT, the Spirit Molecule. An amazing, phenomenal documentary on his study of what we're discussing now. But again, when it comes to the sleep state and the brain producing the dreams, the sleep state and the dream state are two different things. But what helps get the body to the dream state is that open pineal gland, that small lapse of dimethyltryptamine that's fed into the synapse of the brain. So whenever the cortex of the brain starts receiving that, that's what happens. I mean, it's very hard to understand between focal point of dream state and focal point of awareness. What's the difference? That's why I kind of argued with Kyle. You don't know. You don't know, because when you are tuned in, tapped into that dream state with 100% awareness, and you are completely in paralysis state, you don't know whether you are or you're not dreaming. You follow what I'm saying? The focal point, your focal point of consciousness is your awareness point. And until your physical body is awake and alive, well, let's just say awake, then your consciousness comes back to that lower vibrational frequency, and wham, you're back in your body. But when you use a substance, that's why I said in the chat, it's a tool. All the substances, I don't classify them as chemicals. I don't classify them as drugs. I don't induce them. But what they are is they're a tool. They're to help you learn how to elevate your awareness and your vibration. Elevate your vibration, elevate your consciousness, and you have exactly the same substance without the substance. The brain just is able to do this. Anybody?
Does anybody else want to jump in on that? Go ahead. We'll open up.
Yeah, fully with you on that one. And that reminds me of something that you said earlier, which is, you see, like, how do you know that you're awake or asleep? And the only way that we know is when you're in the other state. So the real trick is, how do you know you're alive if you've never been dead, right? So again, it goes back to this life, death, awake, asleep things, and understanding the role dreams play in the death process.
Well, many of your religions teach you fundamentally by the teacher, not in actual text to the day. But many religions, if you go back to the philosophers and the master teachers for what they were, when they were, I mean, a lot of my past understanding goes back to the old dynasty of Egypt. Everything that we're asking and everything we're talking about right now is literally written in stone on the walls of the Luxor temple. Everything, literally everything that we're talking about. When we die, they consider death. These people were more excited about death than they were about life. They considered the death experience the life experience, because when we are aware and when we are conscious and in the vessel, we are constrained. They called this the slave body. That's what this is. We are subject, shackled to the body. Thoth, who I follow and I channel all the time, tells a lot of my students, we are subject to being enslaved only until we are able to understand we can escape slavery, and it's becoming awake and aware of your physical essence. And that's what substance does, is it helps you understand your own isness. You alone are isness. You are a part of consciousness. And the dream state helps, like I said at the beginning, it helps you come to the understanding and the realization of the total of that in which you are. There's the bigger picture. We're only touching a fractal of the bigger picture.
I really like what you're saying, and I just want to add the one other thing that I wanted to share with you guys before and then I'll pass it on again. But so you're talking about the Egyptians, and where I come from, it's very Platonic, and of course the Platonists got, let's say, almost everything from the Egyptians. But so where I come from, the function of the dream is from the higher self to show you what you're overlooking in your waking world that is most important for your spiritual development, so at the moment of death you can get off the cycle of birth and death. And there's a very specific method of looking at the actions, the states of mind, and then the puzzle or drama of the soul, of what the soul is going through and what it needs to learn in order to wake up to that higher consciousness and that higher self. So in that sense, dreams are a divine gift from an all-seeing eye of providence, let's say, to sound wordy for a moment, for us to grow exactly where we are and to see what we're overlooking. In other words, what we were asleep to in our waking world, that the higher self is not asleep to and is reminding us. So in that way, if we have what's called a nightmare dream, we have a dream with a bad state of mind, that means that there's some failure in our waking world that we are counting a success, and we think it's such a success, but it's not, and our dream is showing us that it's really a failure. And on the other hand, if we don't give ourselves credit for the successes and the spiritual developments that we go through in our life, and we're down, then the dream will come in and highlight those and show you that you're overlooking and putting yourself down and not giving yourself credit for your spiritual development. So it's kind of like a balancing checks and balances act with divinity and the waking world. But it's all going towards, like the Egyptians, it's all going towards that moment of death, right? All gearing you towards that moment.
There is no separation. You are that higher self. You literally are that higher self. That higher self is you. The gut intuition is you.
Totally. But then why do we fall asleep to that? And then why do we have the dreams, right? Like you said, there has to be a bridge to the lower self from the higher self so that we can remember and wake up to it. But you're right. In the end, there is no division. And that's the beauty.
Yeah, it's a dance through the Maya, you know, the dance through illusions. Like that's what the learning process is. Like if we came in like with full, like you said, you know, divine awareness, divine providence, then we'd already be at the end of it. Like there wouldn't be a point and stuff like that. So I mean,
yeah, right.
The only way the universe could learn was to forget what it was, so that it could like gain the new experiences. You know, I remember having that paradigm shift, like when I you know, years and years ago, when I was just like, oh my God, like if I was the universe, what would I do? I would create a quote unquote prison for myself to put myself in, like not prison in like sort of the literal sense, but like prison in the sense of just like being able to like put myself in a place where like I didn't know what I was, or I forgot what I was, only so that I could learn and go through those aha moments and everything like that. At this point, I feel like more and more people are like waking up to that obviousness. I just wanted to hit upon some things, but I know we got several people who are excited to add in more to this conversation. And again, thank you everyone for being tuned into this, and just for all the listeners tuning into this in the future. Again, like this is really exciting because, you know, I feel like through us having these conversations, it literally is, like I said, like literally these conversations are a reflection of the dream waking up. And sometimes we do have to get into these conversations collectively for us to just be able to be like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, you know, sort of thing. Like we're remembering, it's all there, it's coming back to the surface. Even if we don't fully know it, it's just a process of being able to connect the dots and putting forth that intuition to sort of align us with our own truths. But what I was going to say is that I'm fascinated by the fascination that cultures have with death, specifically the ones who, like you mentioned, are like intentionally living their physical life with the preparation of moving into death with as much consciousness as possible. Like that is literally something to keep in mind, is that within death, it's kind of like entering into a dream, in the same sense that some cases you could actually enter into death unconsciously. which means that you actually have to like work on your consciousness within this state to be able to move into that big psychedelic trip of death with a degree of consciousness, so that you like move into like an ascended waking state. Like, it's kind of weird to think that like at death there's almost like this like final test, so to speak, and depending on how conscious you were in this lifetime will actually determine how you transition into like that other dimension within the death space. So I mean, you know, a lot of mystery schools will talk about and they say like, you know, like that's why lucid dreaming is important, that's why dream exploration is important, so that when the time comes that we can die, we can actually move through it in a place of like consciousness and mindfulness, so that, you know, it's just like, okay, like I'm dying, quote unquote, you know, like, okay, I'm entering into that space, breathing, mindfulness, fractal colors surrounding me, light and you know, filling up my everything like that. I understand what's happening, continue to breathe, and then, you know, you like go through. Whereas in other cases, it can just like so easily just be like falling into a dream. And then again, you know, we're getting into territory where it's just like, well, what happens? I mean, we can listen to stories and we can make best guesses, but a lot of times, like we're sort of approaching the event horizon of the mystery, in which we don't really know until we get there, kind of thing, which I think is part of the learning curve. But still, just that idea of like being able to prepare ourselves in this lifetime for death is just a very fascinating topic for me, and it just brings back more emphasis as to why we want to become more conscious within this waking state and within the dream state and within all states, so that we can become like better cosmic citizens, so that we can, you know, like bring more consciousness into the oversoul, if you want to think about it that way, be it both in death and right now as well. Yeah, so again, you know, getting into some pretty psychedelic ideas, definitely. Okay, let's just check in again. Does anybody else want to jump in on anything that they said, or if anybody has any new questions, please feel free to ask them to the group as well. There are a couple things at the beginning that I know we didn't get into yet. We can always loop around, but again, does anybody else? Okay, one thing I'll say, and then again, if anybody else has anything to add in, just feel free to jump in, because I know it got brought up earlier, the idea of, and I know I'm just mentioning because I know like some people will just like hear it and be like, well, wait a second. The idea of like DMT being produced by like the pineal gland. I feel like there's still like an aspect in which we have to like tip around the idea of saying that's scientifically proven, because depending on what researches you're referencing, some people will tell you, well, no, that's not scientifically proven. But at the same time, for me personally, I don't feel like I need a scientific journalist to like say that yes, it is or true, regardless of like whether whether quote unquote DMT is released during the brain during birth, death, and sleep. I mean, for my best guess, like yes, it is, and if it's not DMT, then it's something that is doing the exact same thing that DMT would be expected to do. And what is DMT doing? In a very simple way, it's sorry, I'll just say this last second, Matthew. At the very like. If I could explain like what DMT is doing in a very simple way, it's like activating the rainbow bridge, so to speak. It is activating like a broadband connection between yourself and like full-on higher level of source consciousness. So I mean, it makes sense that like at birth, like that is opened up and it comes through. At dreaming, it opens up, we go into the dream space. At death, it opens up, our soul transitions into the astral plane. So yeah, DMT is activating the bridge, the rainbow bridge, so to speak. But again, it's always there, it's always activated. It's just like activating it at another level that brings it into our present awareness, I would say. Matthew, go ahead though. If you go ahead, Matt.
No, I think that was me.
That would, yeah. What?
Oh, sorry.
Was that KJ? Oh, was it whoever wanted to say when? Sorry, whoever was looking to jump in.
I was just going to mention. Real quick. There is new. By the way, there are new studies out that show that the pineal gland is producing dimethyltryptamine. So. Yeah, Straussman had a hard time testing it because obviously the body breaks it down so quickly. But there are new studies out on mice and rats and things like that, of course, because science loves to do things with rats and mice. But there is new evidence that, like, for people like us, like, we don't really care. Like dimethyltryptamine in the pineal gland, it's like obvious. But for scientific people, yeah, they want, you know, this sort of scientific route. But there is new studies out.
At the little side chat, there will be a reference to one of MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Study. It's one of their earlier newsletters, and it has a whole bunch of medical references at the bottom talking about beta-carbolines, which is like harmaline, and the monoamine oxidase inhibitors that are in ayahuasca, how those are present and manufactured in our spinal cord in our brain, how various analogs of dimethyltryptamine are created in the mammalian brain. The reason why we can't scientists can't just crack open a human brain and test it for that, because it'd have to be a living specimen, right? But they have found in cadavers, they've found actual like receptor sites in the spinal cord and in the human brain. And I'm just going to leave a little link in the group chat if anyone wants to look at that. And I'll be back in a little bit.
Cool, thanks, Andrew. KJ, did you want to jump back in there? But yeah, no, that study with the rats, I had heard about that one. That one came out a few years ago, and yeah, like I agree. Like when I saw that, I'm just like, okay, there we go. Like it's proven. But I know like some people are still like on the fence as to whether or not DMT is like produced in the brain. But yeah, like I'd say, yeah, it does. I mean, the fact that theoretically it does connects the dots very appropriately. If it didn't, there would be something missing. And if it wasn't DMT, then it would have to be something like exactly similar to DMT yet not DMT. So I mean, yeah, it doesn't make sense for it not to be produced in the brain, just based on the correlation between like birth, death, and dreaming, and what we said, you know, like psychedelic experiences, a waking state and dreaming state. They're all, you know, just like different versions of the same thing. But yeah, KJ, did you want to jump back in there, or Matthew? I'm not sure if you still want to jump in on some stuff, or if anybody else wants to jump in. I know we got a little bit of conversation in the side chat as well. And again, just inviting any of the new people to jump in at any point as well. Matthew, though, go ahead.
Well, I would like to just point out to everybody that one of the main keys here is we are known as spiritualists, metaphysicists, soul searchers. Okay, and our actions throughout our life path has led us to where we are in the now moment. Okay, we are able to sit down, the 10 of us, 8 of us, whatever's in here, and formally talk about where we're at in our paths, and actually identify with one another. Okay, you cannot take one of these. I won't say people, one of these scientists, and bring him into this group and have him fit. He won't fit. And he won't fit because he has, the odds are he has no understanding of the awareness, the feeling, because we can attribute our consciousness understanding to feeling and emotion, whether it be dreaming or whether it be physicalness. Consciousness in and amongst itself just is, until we give it an identifier. We are all, right at this moment, conscious of our body. We're all going to later be unconscious, but yet conscious. You follow what I'm saying? But when it comes to a spiritual awakening and a spiritual journey, in reference to what we're talking about, science itself, I'm always intrigued by watching new scientific stuff. Well, they found this, they did this. Really? I can go to the Kyle's page or Roman's page or whoever's page, and I can see some stuff where the same stuff's been talked about for months or years, and it's not a documentary. It is a spiritual path. Science is just now crossing into what we know as our journey. They're trying to give a scientific basis to what we have got as an understanding of realness. That's what I would like. That's what I wanted to chime in on. Or you asked me, I had that to say. Science itself will never, ever get to this point because it can't. It literally cannot.
Actually, I'm wondering if actually there is no difference. In other words, there truly is no split between true science and
Doing true science and what is real, or what we know collectively to be real. I guess I'll just finish that statement. I guess hey, you got some error stuff going on, man? Wisdom Rubber, KG.
Oh, sorry, there we go. I just had my mic muted. Okay, sorry. Yeah, no, obviously, like, I mean, yeah, like, we could just get into a conversation about, like, spirit versus science and all those things, but I think there's a lot of stuff there that's almost, like, redundant in saying as well. But, yeah, like, it is interesting to be able to just, like, reflect on the idea that, like, can scientists start incorporating more of the spiritual perspectives into an understanding of reality, and will that become more of a future? Like, will school start teaching kids about, like, the importance of dream exploration and the dream-like reality of this nature, or dream-like nature of this reality? One thing I was going to say, though, is that, just again, this was something that came to me when I was working with the 5-gram mushrooms. It was just like, you know what? Like, I bet you if we're talking about, like, futures, and we're talking about, like, star civilizations and stuff like that, I feel like the future isn't necessarily something that's, like, relative to an aspect of time, but it's relative to an aspect of the evolution of a culture's consciousness. So, I mean, in that sense, like, a futuristic civilization would actually be a civilization that has, like, collectively awakened to the dream-like reality of itself. And so, it's interesting to think that, like, if there was, like, a star nation out there, like a Pleiadian or an Octurian or whatever, any of those ones, maybe theoretically, this is just an idea, maybe, like, they're literally a culture where, like, the large majority of them are just openly aware of what we're pretty much talking about here, the correlation between psychedelic experiences, dream space, and waking states, and they see that, and they operate their culture based around that, and it's much more holistic. To me, that's just, like, an interesting idea, and it gives a little bit of direction as to where our culture could be potentially moving towards. Like, literally, what happens when more people start realizing that this reality is the dream space, and again, the correlations of that in terms of, like, how we interact with it and how we manifest within it, and just, like, even how we can create within it as well, like, not just, like, through our own, like, manifestation abilities, but also just, like, in terms of, like, technologies and things like that, and, like, dimensional travel and all sorts of things. But again, that was just an idea that I just wanted to put out there. Opening up the talking stick, though, if anybody else wants to jump in, and then we'll check in with some other stuff. Andrew, go ahead, and Kyle, did you want to? Sorry, let me just check. Kyle, did you want to jump in with some stuff too, or?
Yeah, I was gonna say something about the whole DMT thing earlier. I was gonna say, like,
sure, okay, go ahead, and then Andrew.
For it to affect us the way that it does, it has to be produced in our brain. There's no doubt about that. For it to have that effect, it's like it takes you to a very, very high place, but it doesn't even have the afterburners to keep going to the 8th and into, that final stage where, as ayahuasca would have those afterburners to take you the rest of the way, DMT alone does not. But when you're consuming Aya, it's the same thing. It's just a different method of entry. But yeah, I would say for it to affect us the way that it does, to bring us that sort of insight and knowledge, then yes, we have to produce it in our minds. And if you're anyone who's familiar with it, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, if you have any kind of, if you've ever touched it or anything like that, then you'll know. I mean, I don't know how many people in here, quote unquote, psychonauts. It's not exactly a topic that everyone just comes out, truly insightful people and truly knowledgeable people that do that sort of journeying. They don't really come out and just throw it in people's faces. It's something that has to be touched on before it's revealed. And I think it's very important, because a lot of people see it and they take it, and then they want to go to their own space of like, oh, this is so cool, you know, that's so cool, and they just sort of get wrapped up in the whole doing it thing, and they're not really taking it for the lessons that it has to present.
Hey, Kyle, you guys,
What?
let me throw something out there.
All right, man.
Back in the older days, okay, there was a gentleman. I do not know his name. I really don't know his name. Had a science lab and was testing for this and doing that, and he came up with another strand of not dimethyltryptamine or DMT, but LSD. Okay, the military then went from there, and they said, oh, let's test it on everybody. Well, during that process, from what I understand, the builders, the teachers, the ones that were studied on LSD in that hallucinogenic, in that dream state, brought over to physicalness consciousness, okay, were so creative. I don't understand why they're still till this day. It's almost as if technology is at a standstill because those people that are in power, quote unquote, won't fundamentally allow these people to research what we're talking about now. When you bring that kind of a creativeness into the physicalness, so much can be achieved. So much can be achieved. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
100%.
A lot of okay, a lot of okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I know what you're talking about. I know.
You're more creative, okay? That is your creative state. That's what I'm saying. It just blows me away how technology is almost at a standstill, and everybody questions, well, what the hell? Why did all these studies stop? Don't ask me.
I'll jump in right
Go
there.
ahead.
In the last 3 years, they've actually, just like on light speed, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies has done a lot of work with veterans, especially, because the whole thing was there's a lot of fear. Back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, most of the researchers were also involved in black ops operations, including McKenna, Leary, Stanislav Grof, what's the other guy's name? Starts with an O. Well, I'm just looking through my archives. Humphrey Osmond, he was another one of them. They were all both double agents, so they were working for the counterculture. They were also working black ops and doing a lot of sort of both-sided stuff. Very interesting history there. But recently, in the last 3 years, most of the bars in the States have been taking off of research for LSD and for MDMA and psilocybin. And there's been, you can actually get ketamine therapy for depression very easily in the States now. You can get end-of-life cancer treatment, anxiety of death therapy with psilocybin or LSD. There's a lot of really exponentially growing, ongoing, on growth happening right now in Canada and in the United States. It was so much all at once, and initially it was contained to a fraction of people that were highly educated and scientists that were working with these and having, and you have, we were talking earlier about how maybe scientists won't understand this. I'm super connected with the scientific community that's involved in this research, and you'd be extremely surprised with the sort of spiritual practices that a lot of these folks are into, and some of the greatest scientists of our times. The discoverer of DNA, Kirk and Watson, discovered it on LSD. And I wouldn't really shame people for having a scientific background. That just gives people a good basis for researching, and their personal beliefs, their religious beliefs, their spiritual beliefs can be completely separate from that as well and can be integrated in a very strong way. Stanislav Grof was the European researcher who worked in the 70s, after LSD was banned from research in the States, because there's this whole counterculture movement, and all of these old 50s parents were like, our children are doing weird things and dressing in strange colors, and we don't know what's going on, and they're not dressing in suits and getting good jobs, and blah blah blah. So yeah, he just kind of he thought that that whole thing was bizarre. He went back to Czech Republic and did a whole lot of research. He administered because he wanted to prove that LSD didn't cause psychosis. So he took psychotic patients that they couldn't treat, like severely psychotic, autistic, catatonic, depressed patients, and he administered over the period of a year, usually around 100 sessions, high dose, like between 1 and 300 microgram LSD treatment therapies. With each of these patients, and all of them, like, there was an 80% recovery rate from their mental illness, and they became functioning members of society, and they were able to, like, get through all of the and what it was there was usually early childhood trauma, usually sexual abuse or something like that, that triggered a repressed memory, and then the psychedelic allowed them to work through that and to just sort of work through and understand it and figure out where that came from and grow from it. And these substances, they've been shown to, like, psilocybin and LSD actually cause growth in areas of the brain that have been damaged from alcoholism and multiple concussions. There's just been, like, an exponential growth, and I've seen in the last 2 years. I've been following it and archiving it, and there's been this just incredible amount of, like, support from the scientific community. And if anyone wants to just go to the MAPS website, it's www.maps.com. Check out their newsletter, sign up for their newsletter, donate if you can. They're doing some of the best research possible right now, and they're just really changing the playing field for us.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah, no, Andrew, I really appreciate you bringing the knowledge that you have to this conversation. And obviously there's more that we can get into related to the psychedelics, and I'm glad that we have gotten into that. And again, you know, helping connect the dots between, like, being able to understand them and how that helps us understand the dream space even more. And I do just want to be able to, like, bring things back with a little bit more focus into the dream space, into the dream exploration topic as well, just because I just don't want things going, like, too far off into just a conversation of psychedelics, but just, again, routing it back into the dream space. But I was curious, though, and Andrew, you might actually have some insight on this, because we mentioned this earlier, you know, when we're talking about practical ideas of how to be able to get better at dream recall and everything like that. One of the things that we had mentioned before is the idea of, like, cannabis actually affecting one's ability to have dream recall. And again, this is something we've mentioned before, but I'll mention it again. And, you know, for, like, some people, if they're just like, why can't I remember my dreams, and they happen to be, like, smoking cannabis daily, try not smoking cannabis daily and notice how that affects your ability to be able to involve your dream recall. I just wanted to share a personal experience, but I just wanted to be able to ask as well if anybody had any insight on why cannabis might actually affect our dream recall, and maybe Andrew has some insight on that. But when I was at the Om Festival, part of my intention, again, like, going into working with, like, the 5 grams of sacred mushrooms, was, like, not smoking cannabis the days prior to, like, up from, like, a week ahead too. And then, like, what I was actually also excited about was the idea that, you know, like, I could easily have, like, just, like, smoked a bowl and, like, got high at the festival, but I was really, like, wanting to honor my like, it seemed more rebellious for me to not smoke cannabis than to smoke cannabis, so to speak, at that festival, if that's kind of, like, how I want to measure things. But what I ended up getting out of it was the idea that, like, each night when I went to sleep, I had the potential to have, like, a psychedelic experience within the dream space, especially being in the magic of this festival. And one of the things that actually happened to me is that, like, prior to going into the psychedelic experience on Saturday, on Friday I actually had a dream, or rather on Thursday I actually had a dream where my interpretation of the mother goddess actually came to me in my dream, which I felt was actually very meaningful. And what I mean by this, just to give it some detail, is for those of you who have seen the Journey to Lucidity movies and are familiar with that, and for those you haven't, you can check them out on my YouTube channel at Skull Babylon. But again, they're full-length movies at Transformational Festival, and it's all about, like, wakening up within the dream and this dream-like reality. And within that, like, the character of the Mother Goddess within the movies, who is also played by Jamaica Stevens, you see her, she's, like, the one who's, like, welcoming me into the dream, and she's kind of like one of the leaders within the festival. Yeah, like, she came to me in my dream, and for me, like, that was, like, very reassuring. Like that was very important for me to have that dream, and like that gave me a lot of comfort and confidence moving into my psychedelic experience in the next few days. Just like her presence being there in my dream, like I was just like, okay, that wasn't an accident. Like that was like, you know, the universe sort of like sending me a message sort of thing. And then again, you know, like had I smoked weed, like I might not have had that experience and I might not have gotten that. But yeah, like sometimes it's easy for us to just like not care about remembering our dreams. But I think when we start dedicating our attention to our dreams and we start telling the universe that, hey, you know, like I love my dreams, like, you know, literally saying that, like, I love my dreams, like I care about my dreams, and the universe will start like sending us messages through our dreams. It will start delivering us information through our dreams. And you know, like I do want to just open up conversations for anybody who wants to share anything about like potent dreams that they have had, you know, ones that really stood out to them, and maybe it was like someone else showing up, or anything like that. I want to be able to open up that. But again, just going back to what I was saying, good night, Sherman, peace and love, brother. I just want to ask Andrew, do we have any sort of like scientific insight or any other perspectives on why cannabis actually may affect our ability to recall dreams, be able to interact with our dreams in general, or is there even a spiritual perspective on why that may be? But go ahead, Andrew. Yeah.
Definitely is some, and off the top of my head, I'm not recalling a lot of it because I carry so much up here. And I'm constantly having to put it out. But one thing that I know as a fact, through personal experience, is smoking cannabis before bed does definitely impair dreaming, because I think the reason is its duration is so short. Kind of wears off around like 4 to 5 hours when you need around like 7 to 8 hours. So it impacts our REM sleep, and our REM sleep is when we integrate a lot of stuff. Edibles are the best things to take before bed. If you take an edible, like a mixture of like cannabis butter or a like Phoenix Tears or Rick Simpson oil or something like that, I always have the most profound dreams. And I take cannabis medicinally for chronic back pain. I've never had, and I can only take it orally for the pain, and I've never had any trouble with recalling my dreams. It's always increased. It's much, much more intense. I recall more. They're more vivid. They're more profound. They're more intense. And it's only when I eat it. If I smoke it, nope, nothing. If I vape it, nothing. Don't remember much. But if I eat it, if I consume it, because it absorbs slower and it's still in your system for the whole sleep. Yeah.
Andrew, so I mean, maybe you're aware. I would think you are, because you sound very intelligible. When it metabolizes through the bloodstream, it becomes a different compound. So yeah, right. So it's not exactly. It is very different than smoking it, like you said.
Mm-hmm. And the traditional way to do.
So we would.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, some of the more traditional ways, like the more ancient ways to consume cannabis, is oral. That's more of a modern, like the last few hundred years thing. But the
well, I mean, like in India, they eat hashish, right? I just came back from India. It's a big tradition of eating the hashish, right?
Yeah,
because that's how you get into the mystical states.
Yeah, that's It's they eat a lot of it. And there's a book, I forget what his name is. It was a British guy, and he was part of the club of Hashashins. They were sort of a, I don't want to use this word, but a, they were studying like Eastern mythology and everything. There was sort of a derogatory term for it that we don't use anymore. I'm not going to bring that up. But they looked at hashish, and they would consume massive quantities, like multiple grams of hashish, and have profound like psychedelic experiences walking around like nighttime London, like London, England, at the middle of the night, and having visions and everything, and going to bed. And there's a book about the Club of Hashashins, and I can't remember the author's name, but if anyone wants to look that up, that's super interesting. And like consuming the cannabis is one of the best ways to get the visionary aspects of it. And I know in India they also they smoke charas. There's a huge tradition of mixing it with the Brigamensia, which is like a member of the belladonna family. And I caution people to not ever use this plant. Smoking it is technically kind of safe, but if you have any sort of heart conditions, don't do it. I'm not gonna advocate for the use of any sort of belladonna-based or datura-based sort of working. But in India, they do mix a little bit of opium. They mix a bit of tree datura, and then they mix hashish all together with a bit of really strong tobacco and smoke it out of a chara. And that's one of their spiritual practices, and that's what Shiva smoked in the lore. So that's a thing. And I've had the experience of that myself. It's quite profound. It really changes. All three of these chemicals interact in a very special way, and they create a very blissful dreaming experience. But the fact that there is opium in it can be physically addictive, and the datura can be physiologically dangerous to people. So I would never advocate for anyone else to do that, but that is something that some folks do in some cultures.
Mm-hmm. Just on the topic related to just like different plants that can be worked with, integrate into our dream experience. Andrew and anybody else, do you want to share a little bit about maybe some practical direction that you can point people in towards, like some plants that they can work with that can help with dream recall? I mean, I know a lot people will talk about some of the common ones, but let's try and do that. Let's just try and create like a short list of ones that people might actually be able to find somewhere. So.
I'll tell you my favorite one. They're actually two. They're both related. One is catmint, which is separate from catnip. And before, in the British Isles, the Celts used to drink this as a tea, as a dreaming tea. For cats, it wakes them up, makes them hyper, makes them sexually aroused or aggressive. For humans, it causes a slight stimulation for about 10-15 minutes and brings you in this really dreamy state, and has this really pungent floral smell. I have a huge jar of it. I grow it every year. Catmint or catnip also is very, very, very powerful at nighttime. You can mix it with a little bit of St. John's wort, as long as that doesn't interact with any medications you might be on. But catmint and catnip are very, very, very safe. And they are very, very beautiful dream aids. And I'd recommend the catmint, which has little purple flowers rather than the white flowers, and it's very pungent. And you'll see a lot of people around, they just have it in their garden. It looks like a mint, but it has these little beautiful purple flowers on it. You crush it between your hands. It has this pungent, floral, like musky smell. Really, and just make a tea out of it. Put a few teaspoons in a cup of boiling water, set it for 10 minutes, strain it, drink it, lay down in bed when you're ready, when you feel sleepy. And then setting intentions. Dream intentions are so great. You can really access your past lives every night before. If you want to learn about your past lives, just every night before you go to bed, say, speak to your subconscious. Say, I would like to learn about my past lives, and just say that intention, and eventually they will come, and they will be different than dreams. They will be very different from dreams, because they will be like you're walking in day-to-day life, but it's more vivid than day-to-day life. It's not, there's nothing strange like what happens in dreams. Everything is very reality-based, and everything is like hyper-realistic. And there will be these details that you remember, these certain things, and then you can go on the internet and research them, and then find out that these were things that happened in the past. And that's all I'll have to say about dream herbs. I don't experiment too much with dream herbs. I experiment more with like health-enhancing herbs in the daytime. I am a herbalist, like I study herbalism, but I don't work too much with the dream herbs.
Okay, so sorry, that was catmint, and sorry, what was the other one?
Catmint and catnip.
Okay, catnip. So
catnip, like what you give to your cats to make them hyper. But it's best to grow it. Because the stuff that you buy at the store, unless it's a herbal store, if you buy it at the pet store, it's worthless. Go to a garden store, buy some cat mint plants or some cat mint seed, and just grow those, harvest them, and you can cut like most of it off. It'll grow right back, and dry it out, make a tea out of it. And cat mint is, for me, one of the best dream herbs. And it gives you a really beautiful, restful sleep, too. You wake up and you feel just blissed out in the morning.
Cool. Harmony, go ahead. You got your microphone open. Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, definitely. Catnip is wonderful. I would definitely make sure that you grow it organically. Also, another tip is if you have cats in the area, or your own cat, that make sure that you put a greenhouse, or that you have some kind of a cage around it because your cats or neighborhood cats will destroy it. I've had that experience
Ditto on that,
myself.
ditto.
Yes, and I also make little dream pillows that are little organza sachets. They have a mix of herbs in it. And the herbs that I recommend the most are passion flower and catnip, like he said, and valerian root is really amazing for helping you get into that lucid dream state and relaxing your body so that your mind can go into the realm of lucidity. And also lemon balm is a good one, and it grows very easily. It's easy to get. And mugwort is another dream herb that is really powerful, and it's also known as artemisia. And there's another herb that's called dream root, and I'm not sure the Latin name, but a friend of mine gave me some one time, and it was really, really amazing, the experience that I had with the dream root tea. And I would recommend making teas. They're really, really great. Or you can even put the plants in your room if you have plants around you. And the frequency of those plants and the smells and the essential oils will also help you go to a more living world.
Yeah, I would definitely ditto on the passion flower. I forgot about a few of those. Passion flower actually contains a small amount of monoamine oxidase inhibitors, similar to what's in ayahuasca. Not enough that it'll interact with anything in your body. You can take quite a lot of it, and it won't hurt you, it won't bother you. You don't have to go on an ayahuasca diet or anything. But if you make a cat mint or catnip tea, mix in some passion flower, that's a really great one because that allows the melatonin to convert into other chemicals, and it really helps to expand your mind. And there's one other that I just thought of right now, and I'm just trying to pronounce the name because it's a traditional one from South America and Mexico, and it's used by some of the shamans there for dream work. It's Calia Zaca Tecachichichi. It's called the Mexican dreaming herb. I'm going to write that down in the group chat because I'm sure no one is going to be able to spell that.
Camellia
That one creates lucidity. It's a really, really great herb for creating lucid dreaming, spiritual journeying. It intensifies the visual imagery, and it gives you a really great sense of well-being and lightheadedness and clarity the day afterwards. And you need like 5 grams of this herb too. You need like a good amount, like maybe like a bunch of teaspoons in your teapot. Strain it, like let it sit for 10 minutes, then strain it out and drink it all right before bed.
It is the worst tasting thing on the planet.
Yep.
So yeah, let me just 1 second. I was going to ask you though, Andrew. Have you ever do you have any insight on working with rue as something to use as a tea in relation to
working with
Syrian rue?
Yeah, so that one is a tricky one. So I make sure that I really have to talk to folks often who are thinking about using that because sometimes people might be on antidepressants or other medications that might interact with it. In very small doses, like a couple seeds, like the size of like less than like your like pinky nail, like maybe like 5-10 seeds, that's like kind of okay. But if you're going to be doing the like gram, 2 gram, 3 gram doses, that's where it gets tricky, and you have to be careful about what you eat. If you're doing anything over like 2 grams, you really have to watch the ayahuasca diet. Watch out for cheeses and all that stuff. I'm sure folks know about that. But that one definitely can really just open you up spiritually in the daytime and in the nighttime. Another one is Blue Lotus. Blue Lotus is really great. It's hard to come by now because it's really hard to farm. There's only, I think, like in India, 3 families that still farm it. And it's quite expensive, and it's an endangered species. So if you care about the environment, if you care about the ethnobotany of the planet, I would stay away from that one. If you get your hands on it, do it once in a while, but just don't overdo it with the Blue Lotus because it's one of the most sacred plants in Buddhism and in the Egyptian traditions.
I've had Egyptian Blue Lotus. It's really
one of
good.
the sutras described, Buddha's eyes as being the color of the blue lotus flower.
Mhm. Yeah, Kyle, just 1 second, just before we pass it over to you, I just wanted to confirm for the people who are listening to this in the future in the podcast, the one of the ones that Andrew mentioned, the Kalia Zakatatichi, the spelling for that is Calea, Kalia, Zakatatichi, Zacatechichi. So kind of how it sounds,
Yeah, and you
more
can
or
find it.
less.
Google Mexican dream herb. You'll
That would
find it.
work. Yeah. I've
Yeah,
actually tried that one. It's very, very bitter tasting and
it's bitter,
delicious.
and a lot of shamans say, the bitter the medicine, the stronger the medicine. So, and
Yeah.
I say that too
Yeah.
as an herbalist. The more bitter, the stronger it is, the better it is. So
Yeah,
once
that's
you
always
start to work
interesting.
with herbs, you get used to the bitter taste. It's like as a kid, you drink wine, you're like, what is that? And then as an adult, some folks drink wine, they love it, right? So when you
Hmm.
work with herbs, the more bitter you get, the more you get used to it.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, that's good. I think we got a pretty good list there. Some of the ones that I wrote down, and I think I missed a few of them. But yeah, going back to the top, you mentioned catmint, catnip, which one? What was the root? Valerium root.
Mugwort, maybe? Artemisia
Um,
vulgaris?
Well, yeah, mugwort was another one that I had listed. Lemon balm, passion flower, blue lotus, and the Calea Zakatatichi.
Yep.
Yeah,
Valerian.
yeah,
And then
Valerian,
there's
Valerian
the
root,
Syrian rue, but we
the
also
Syrian
want to
root.
warn people to really investigate it and look into, like, make sure they're not on any medication that might interact with it. Make sure that they
Yeah.
are careful with dosage, because it can be toxic in high doses. In low doses, in very low doses, like a pinch, it's quite safe. But if you have a heart condition, if you have any sort of illnesses, it might not be the best thing for you. All these other herbs are very, 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 very safe. But
Hmm.
Syrian rue, just because it works in a certain way in the body, it can cause high blood pressure if you mix it with certain medications. If you're prone to high blood pressure, cardiac problems, if you're on any sort of psychiatric medication at all, antidepressants, anything like that, I would stay away from it.
Hmm.
And then look into the ayahuasca diet. So not eating fermented food, not having alcohol with it, not eating too much meat with it, all these things. Like just eating a good vegan diet.
Hmm. Yeah, and again, just a little extra info with like the Syrian rue. That's like part of the ingredient within like the ayahuasca brew itself, and the Syrian rue is part of like the MAOI, which allows like the psychedelic experience to last longer, opposed to the
Yeah.
body naturally flushing out the DMT within the brain as it would automatically do, just like through a chemical process. So in that same idea that it would allow a DMT experience to last longer. That's why
It
it
allows
also works within the dream space, because like theoretically it allows the dream space to either become more vivid or to allow itself to like not be flushed out as soon, which can result in more dream exploration process.
And I have a really fun narrative about Syrian rue. So they actually use it to make a red dye and a yellow dye. And in the Middle East, where they made the what are they called? The Arabic carpets. That's not the right word for it, but like the really fancy carpets that come out of the Middle East with all the very intricate like designs. They they make the yellow dye and the red dye out of Syrian rue seeds. And over the course of the day, the folks working with it would absorb so much of it just through their hands and arms and everything. They would actually start to have visionary experiences in the day. And that's where the myth of the flying magic carpet comes from. It comes from Syrian rue.
Wow, that's really interesting. I didn't know that, so that's
Yeah.
actually pretty
So
funny.
like Aladdin and everything, like they're tripping on Syrian rue.
Go figure. That's funny. Cool. Well, thanks again, Andrew. That's some great insight. And again, if anybody has any other stuff they want to add, Kyle, I know you want to, or you had something to mention,
Yeah, when you
Blue
guys were talking
Lotus, or
about, oh, Blue Lotus, yeah. I was able to get my hands on Blue Lotus when I was like 19, and it worked amazingly. If you do a lot of it, it just brings everything into one. And like I was driving my truck home at like 5 in the morning, and I was like seeing these like geometric shapes, and I was like couldn't tell if I was asleep or if I was awake. But I got home and I was out for the rest of the day. It was really crazy. But I was wondering if you guys were talking about Datura Jimson, like the Datura family of plants. Not the Datura family, but
Did you say Jimson weed or Jimson root?
Jimson weed. Yes,
I think it's the
Is that
bergamot.
that's what the
Datura.
agoras use in India to like it's like called like a zombie like state?
Yeah, because I was gonna say, like, I've done Datura Jimson weed, and it's very dangerous, and it's not something that anyone should do, because it's that one that, if you don't know what you're doing, you can very well eat too much and die very quickly.
Even
And
if you do know what you're doing.
I'm surprised I'm not. I'm surprised I'm here, to be honest. I've done several handfuls, and it took me to a very, very strange place. And I was very, very.
So the thing with that sort of plant is it's not a hallucinogen; it's a deliriant. So folks will be seeing visual things that they think are 100% real. It's not like with shrooms or LSD where you can, tell that you're
the
tripping.
difference. Yeah, that's
You
the
can't tell the difference at all.
experience.
And
That's the
I
experience
do a
that
lot
I
of
had.
workshops with youth, and I teach them about substances in a non-biased way. And that is the only drug that I will ever tell anyone. Like, I'm non-biased towards all substances except for that one, because it can be very, very dangerous. And when I was in high school, I had a friend whose cousin and their best friend were really into just doing whatever they want, whatever they could get their hands on. And they got into using the thorn apples off of the datura plant.
Yeah,
and
that's what
they
I
wouldn't
did.
eat it, they would just take a bite out of it. And eventually, one time after doing it, I don't know, like about 10 times or something, I was surprised they're still alive after that point. They walked off of, and this is a bit dark, so trigger warning for anyone who's like accidentally passed away through overdose or whatever. They actually walked off of the 7th floor story of an apartment building because they didn't realize they were in an apartment building, and they both died at 15 years of age. Because they were on datura, and they didn't know the difference. They thought that they were walking out just into the grass.
Yeah.
So that one is quite.
That's pretty much.
Yeah, in Europe, the witches used to use it, and the witches and maguses and wizards used it to fly. But oftentimes, the ritual, the way that they would do the ritual, is they would have their apprentice tie their arms, body, legs, and calves and like ankles down to a chair, give them the substance, and then leave them there all night, because people just have this tendency to just go off, and their body's in one place but their mind is in another place, and their body can do almost anything. It's a very interesting plan, and it can bring you to some very interesting places but also some very dark places.
Yes, I could definitely tell you, because with my experience in that realm, there is definitely a reason that that plant is called nightshade. When you go there, you know why. Because even during the daytime, you are in the shade of the moon. It's a very, very terrifying place to be if you're not ready for it. It's
the only safe way to really
horrifying.
consume it. Sorry, like continue. Sorry.
Oh, I was saying, this is a very horrifying experience, to be honest. Like, with all the compiled psychedelic experience that I have and have chosen to do throughout my life.
If somebody doesn't have any medical sort of problems, it is possible to take a small amount of the leaf and mix it with a bit of marijuana, because there's about 3 chemicals in it, and 2 of those are highly toxic. One of them is not, and that one is the only one that doesn't get burned up by the fire. So I even wouldn't recommend people do that, but I've done that in the past, and I've had pleasant experiences with that, and it's not dark. It just changes the way that the cannabis interacts with you. You get these gravitational distortions, and you kind of connect telepathically with plants and stuff. But yeah, so that's a whole other discussion that we could talk about for hours about bergamencia and its whole history.
Oh, yeah. I didn't do anything with the leaves. I took the spine apples that you were talking about.
Yeah, that has the most. That has the strongest concentration of everything.
I broke them open, and I had a ton of them. I picked them from the neighbor's plant. I I took all the seed pods, I broke them open, and I laid the seeds out, and I had a vial of seeds, and I just did some fistfuls, of seeds.
Yeah, the seeds are the most dangerous part of the plant. Up until about 1986, I think, that you used to be able to go to any corner store and buy Datura cigarettes. And this is because it's the traditional medicine for asthma. Before puffers were around, it's a bronchodilator. It opens up the bronchi so people can breathe if they're having an asthma attack. And I suffer from irritable airway. I get like asthma from cats, and I've used it for that purpose, and it's great. But what happened was a lot of like people who didn't know what it was would end up eating a cigarette and then having that whole experience, and then there's a number of deaths that happened, and the last company that was selling it just had to stop because there was too much stuff in the media about it, and there was too many folks like misusing it, unfortunately. But like I said, the most powerful medicines, the most dangerous medicines, can also be the most healing medicines for certain conditions, and you have to know how to use them, and you have to be with somebody who has the expertise to guide you through that. And without that expertise and that knowledge is sometimes occulted and hidden, it's not something you want to experiment with. And I really blame this a lot on Carlos Castaneda, because in his first book he just like talked all about like experimenting with Datura and all these experiments, and he turned out to be kind of a false anthropologist. He lied a lot, and a lot of the stuff he made up, and a lot of folks in our community in like the 60s and 70s who read that book, they thought, oh, this is great, it's something I can find in my mom's garden and like have a great experience with, but it didn't turn out that way for them. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
But yeah, sure. Definitely, absolutely. Yeah, I've had definitely some crazy experiences with Datura, and it's not anything I would advocate to anybody doing. I would not suggest going out to find this plant to do anything with it.
Funny enough, it's actually in the exact same family as tomatoes and potatoes.
Yes,
they're almost exactly related. Yeah.
They're in the same taxa, they're in the same family. Right, family. It's not the taxa or the kingdom or anything like that.
Cool, guys. Yeah, again, thank you so much, guys, for just like being able to hit upon some of these topics in the conversation. It's good to be able to archive these within all the knowledge that we're bringing together. And yeah, again, just reminding everyone, like, definitely, like, anything that you've heard here, just when it comes to ingesting things into your body, just like do your research, like make sure, and like ask questions. There's message boards where you might be able to get some more clarification, or even within this broadcast, for most of the people who have been in here, we'll try to get their contact information involved as well. So maybe if it's either a question, maybe Andrew might be available if some people have some individual questions. He's nodding his head. So yeah, so we can always follow up with that. But again, just encouraging people to be really smart, really conscious about any of this stuff, and just not doing anything unless you sort of double checked. But yeah, and Andrew's email, you can email him at andrew@tripproject.ca. And Andrew is actually helping at the Om Festival with one of the camps that was all about, which was Trip Project. Was that what your camp? Yeah, he was working with the camp at the Om Festival, again, the transformational festival that we were both at over the weekend. And again, that was just all about like bringing conscious mindfulness into working with any of the not just calling them drugs, but any of the teachers and medicines that you can work with to be able to help expand your consciousness with intention and bring more experiences into your reality. So again, you can check it out at andrew@tripproject.ca, and we'll include his Facebook is also Andrew Wilson, and again, I'll include a link for that into the show notes under today's episode of Dream Class for June 28th, 2016. With that said, guys, we've been in this class for over 2.5 hours, and I would like just to be able to wrap it up so that we can save some conversation for another time. But before we do that, one of the topics that I want to be able to get into is the idea of going back to our topic of shared dream space, and ending the episode again with a short meditation related to being able to gather around the dream tree, which is what we're referring to it within our imagination, to be able to carry over that intention into the astral planes. But before we do that, I just wanted to open up some conversation a little bit more. I'm curious, has anybody here had any experiences with shared dreaming? Has anybody had anything related to that they might be able to share? Because that's something that what we're talking about. You know, we're talking about the idea of multiple people being able to meet up at a single place within the dream space. And that is something that we are very interested in, and something that we're intentionally working towards through our collective meditations. But again, I'm curious, has anybody here had any personal experience with shared dreaming before? KG?
Brendon, I have a question for you.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Do you mean like, do you mean like, I'm gonna go to bed tonight and you're gonna go to bed tonight and we're gonna plan to meet up?
To a degree, yeah. I mean, that would be one way of doing it, yeah.
So it's like it's a conscious, like, astral projection?
Yeah. Like, theoretically, the next day, both people would wake up and they would be able to be like, dude, I saw you in my dream last night. And be like, dude, I know, I was there too. Like, that would be a successful
and
version.
both people would have the exact same, or not the exact same dream, but both people would, I'm just trying to figure out what
some
that
form
would
of
look like.
would have some form of recollection of meeting up. I've had it blatantly only once within my reality, where I was literally like with a friend online, and I was talking to him, and this was like years and years ago, and both of us woke up. But the interesting thing is that we sort of had both of us woke up with the same song in our head, which actually was used as sort of like a trigger recall mechanism. And it was actually the song like Smooth Criminal by Alien Ant Farm. Again, this was like back in like 2002 or something, right? But yeah, like within the dream, we were like sitting on a couch and we were talking at a party. Yeah, we were talking at a party. And then like within like the morning that we woke up, he like sent me a message, and before I even opened it, like I actually knew what the song was ahead of time. And then we got into the conversation. We were just like, dude, do you remember your dream last night? And I was like, yeah, you know, like we were both there, and both of us were able to confirm it. But it was funny because the conversation that we had is actually very like, I've mentioned this way back in some other broadcast, but it was really funny. I'll just tell you guys real quick. But long story short, both of us were at a party together, and at the party, I was explaining to him. I was like, see, man, like there's like entities all around us. We just can't see them all the time. Like look over there in the corner. There's like a gnome who's standing there in the corner. Even if we can't see him, he can see us, and he's just like chilling out, looking at us. So I was like talking about like invisible gnomes in the dream space, which was kind of funny. Because that's still a topic that we're still talking about today, obviously. But again, so I mean that honestly has been like one experience that I've had with a shared dream. So I mean it's possible, and I'm not the only one with an experience. And again, I'm just looking to sort of archive. I'm curious if anybody here within this class at this point has had any shared dream experiences that they would like to add to this ongoing documentation. Allison, did you wanna share something?
Sure, I would love to. So this is my first time being here, so I'm very excited. So my fiance and I, we've both been experiencing and, you know, dealing with spiritual things, experimenting, I guess. And one of the first times we slept in the same place, I guess, because our auras were so close. He definitely had his own dream experience, but we both met up in our dream, and we remember, you know, sharing some kind of experience, and then we both parted ways, and then it's happened a few times since then, so it's pretty cool.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a good point as well, is that, you know, are shared dreams more likely when you're in the same proximity as someone? It seems that like definitely that has the potential to create that opportunity, it would seem. So I mean, again, you know, like that's something that people can bring into their practice if they're sleeping with someone, you know, like be it a partner or just a friend in the same room. You guys could actually like intend to do that, intend to have like a shared dream experience. So yeah, no, Allison, thank you for confirming that we're not crazy and stuff like that happens sometimes. And welcome to Dream Class too. So, cool. So again, just passing it around. Does anybody else related to shared dreams have any personal experience that they would like to share and add to our documentation of this? And if you guys aren't sharing anything, then I'm assuming that maybe you haven't had a shared dream before, and that's totally that's totally cool too. Andrew, did you want to jump in or?
I wanted to see if anyone else wanted to go first because I've spoken a lot, but if not, I will.
Anybody else want to go first?
Yeah, Andrew, why don't you shut up already?
Yeah, I got something.
Now, guys. Now.
I got something.
I'm just kidding. It's all been very beautiful.
I know. Kyle has something to share as well, and Kyle's talked a lot too.
I know. I talk a lot too on these shows, so
all right.
If no one else is going, I'll go, and then Andrew.
I mean, the only other people be Harmony. Did you have anything to share related to shared dreams? Maybe no. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so Kyle, go ahead, and then Andrew, and then that's
man, when I was entangled with this woman, right, when I was in the army, and there was this woman, and it's the one that I got married to, and all that mess, and being a horrible experience, right? So, there were, when I was in the army, she was obviously not in the same state as me. But I could say there is a shared dream experience because I was viewing her and some things that she was doing. Like, we would come to the same space, but we would both bring, it's just strange. Like, we'd be in an airport and we wouldn't be with each other. We would just be passing by. She would be a bystander to an incident, but like later on there would be an explanation for this. Like, she'd be like, I had this dream and blah 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 blah, and I was like, that's really weird because I was that man passing you in the airport. I just didn't stop for whatever reason. And I watched her go from that incident and get on the airplane and leave. Just from different points and different aspects.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Even just that, it sort of brings up the idea that, like, sometimes we can be in other people's dreams, and maybe one person will actually be aware that it's a dream, and the other person won't be aware that it's a dream. That is something that can happen, which again goes into the idea that maybe you could like meet up with a friend in a dream, but they'll be in their dream, and you might actually have to like help like wake them up or something like that, which is like sort of an interesting idea as well.
I've also had a really strange experience with an incredible inception, on whatever you want to call that word or whatever, or a dream within a dream within a dream within a dream within a dream. It was very interesting because I kept waking up to the same scenario. And it was with the same woman that I was previously talking about. I have an ex-wife, and she's, I don't know, I'm just not going to talk about that. But there was, just, we were waking up in the morning. It's like we had an apartment or something in the dream. It's like there's like an apartment or like a flat, or whatever it is. Wake up next to her, but she's like sick or something. Wake up and start doing some stuff. Wake up, the alarm clock goes off. Pick up the alarm clock, put it back down, and then she's ill. And it's like the first time it happened, she morphed into like this crazy thing. It was like coming at me, trying to kill me or something, and like I got knocked down, and then I was waking up in bed again. And I picked up the alarm clock. I put the alarm clock back down, and I got up and I saw that she was sick. But this time, her body was covered with lesions, and it started to get familiar. And I was like, this feels like this has happened before, or whatever. Her body is covered in legions. Legions started weeping, and they started pussing, and then she, same thing again. She got up and started to assault me, and all this other crazy shit. And then I was waking up in bed again. I was getting out, and I was looking at the alarm clock, and I put it back down. And at that point, I knew this is happening again. This is going to happen again. At that point, I knew that it was going to occur again. You know, I knew it's like there was something in there that I recognized, and that might have been looking at the alarm clock and putting it back down and capturing that familiar cause, that familiar feeling of it's going to happen again, the repetition, the deja vu. And sure enough, it happened again, and then I was getting out of bed, and I picked up my alarm clock, and I knew as soon as I picked up the alarm clock that time, hey, like, I'm inside of a dream, and this fractal doesn't stop.
Mm-hmm.
Before I was able to, like, sort of work my way into a different part of that dream. I had to go through that section again and again, but it was the moment of realizing it was a dream and then waking up within it again to experience that same set of actions again, to wake up in bed, check the alarm clock, and still be there. To the point where it happened until I woke up by myself and realized I'm in my bed and looked at my alarm clock and I threw it like across the room or something. It was like something, and yeah, just to be sure. And I was tired, like I didn't get any sleep. So yeah, that goes on a tangent offset to shared dreams or whatever, but
yeah, that's
we're in the biggest dream right now, the shared dream reality.
There we go. Yeah, I mean, like, again, yeah, you're right. Like, without having to get like too far into the shared, like the dream within dreams, but I do think there's something. I think there is a reason behind looking at that. But again, you know, I was just like, yeah, like the dimensions within dimensions within dimensions. That is worth looking at. That is an important dot to connect. Yeah, so Kyle, thanks for sharing that experience. KJ, go ahead, and then Andrew, if you want to mention your shared dream experience afterwards, and then we'll get close to wrapping this up.
Go ahead, Andrew. I'm curious to see. I want to hear what you got to say.
Sure, yeah. So when I first met my partner, it was like, I don't know, like 7, 8 years ago. Immediate, like, really strong connection, almost like our souls had been like split on the other side, and then we were meant to like find each other to come back together. Like the two of us make a pair, and we've always felt that way. But at the time, I'm not going to sort of self-disclose the certain substances I was using, but I will say they were aryl cyclohexamines, certain dissociative anesthetics that I'm not going to specify which one. But we were using like quite a lot, enough to actually put us under and be in the dream state while sort of still being consciousness at the same time. And this happened multiple times, where we would be like in bed together, bonded, and our bodies would like just join, and then we would go into this dream state where we'd be in 4th or 5th dimensional consciousness, and we would just be traveling through all of these different places. And when we would wake up, we would have so many of the experiences we could elaborate on and say, yeah, I was there with you, and we experienced this and this and this, and going down that like fractal jungle hole and going into this place. And then at a point we like found ourselves at River Styx, and we were like on the like boat with like the like gate master, and we're like, okay, we're not here for that, let's go back the other way.
Let's leave Ferryman Charon to his will.
Yeah, but we had a number of experiences like that where just like we were together, we weren't speaking, we were almost unconscious, but we were going through these like trans-dimensional spaces, and after coming out of them, like our experiences like aligned up almost like identically, and it was very interesting. And yeah, that's what I have to say.
Word.
That's fantastic, man.
Word, right on, man. Cool. KJ, did you want to add anything else? And again, we'll get pretty close to wrapping things up soon.
Yeah, I got a jet.
KJ, are you still there? Maybe not. Cool. Okay. All right, so that's totally fine. Yeah, okay, so going back to, again, like our shared dreams are a possibility? Yes, it would definitely seem so, and it is something that we're working towards, and hell, like we're in one right now. Like the fact that like this reality exists is kind of proof that like it can happen on other dimensional levels of it, so to speak. So I mean, that gives us purpose, that gives us intention, that gives us an objective to work towards in terms of like the what we're trying to do within this project, which is just being able to develop that space within our shared imagination so that we can continue to work towards it, so that again, the space that we're talking about, for those of you who are aware of the preview image related to the dream class, you'll see it as a person standing in front of a field, and in the field there is a single tree, and then above the tree there's the paradigm shift sigil, which again sort of looks like a compass, north star, Stargate portal beacon type sigil. And so as simple as this concept is, it's something that we can collectively bring ourselves to if and when we achieve lucidity, or even just by happenstance. And it has already happened. There is one of our friends, Ashley, who hasn't been in the dream class recently, but again, this was a few weeks ago, and she mentioned that she, in her dream, like had a dream where she was at the dream tree, and she said like there was like several of us who were there, who were sitting around and hanging out. So I mean, that's another thing in itself which is interesting within the dreams, is that like, okay, we've created this place, and even though we may not fully be able to remember ourselves having been there, perhaps we actually already have. Perhaps like there are parts of us within the dream space that are already hanging out there. But the next step is just to be able to be conscious of it and to be able to develop that recall. So I mean, for me personally, that's part of my intention behind like being able to develop my dream recall, being able to work towards lucidity, is so that the day will come where I'll literally be able to wake up the next morning and share with you guys and be like, yes, this happened. This like I was there. I was at the dream tree and I saw you guys and we hung out and we had a drum circle next to it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So and which is honestly, again, like why we're creating that space. Like in the same way like the festival happened on the weekend, we can have like a festival around this tree within the dream space. And this is honestly like, in my mind, like this is 100% possible. The only thing, like it's just a matter of like diligence and persistence in order for us to get there. But the fact that it's a little bit challenging just calls us into more reason as to like why we can develop lucidity, among many other personal reasons as well. Harmony, go ahead. You got your microphone open.
Yeah, it just reminded me of a group meditation that I've done before. I can't remember if it was on Rita Melchizedek or Anna Merkaba, but they did a gathering around the pond. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it was very, for some reason that image came to me when you were talking about gathering around this tree. And I've actually have visited the gathering around the pond in a dream. However, I don't know anybody that I saw that was there. I just saw faces that looked familiar, but I didn't actually know. So it just is very reminiscent of that.
Totally. So I mean, yeah, again, like the fact that other like conscious community groups have like had similar intentions, and again, like that's like it's honestly just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what it is that we're working towards. But I'm fascinated by the idea of shared dream space and of being able to create places within the dream space through the active intentions of our imagination within this physical dimension, like, because if we can create a tree that we can hang out in, maybe that's like a step towards being able to create like a small community and eventually like a city. And then like what happens when enough collective intention is built that we can actually create like an astral city through our imaginations. And maybe that's actually like what's already happened through like other futuristic civilizations and things like that, and part of them actually live there more consciously. Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, I was speaking to somebody of mine ancestry a few years ago. I just ran into them in this random shop, this little tiny shop in this really small mall like near me. And I'd never seen this shop before, and I just walked into it, and it had a lot of the sort of like awakening books. It had a lot of Zachariah Sitchin's books and everything. And the older woman, she was probably in her 80s, was sitting there, and I was just talking to her, and I wanted to know like a bit about like what people from, she was I think from Peru or somewhere in South America, and I wanted to know about like what people there talked about, you know, the temples and all of that, and because we have like our like North American beliefs about that, and like all these anthropologists saying all these things, but what are the folk tales about them? And then we got into this very deep talk about the dream world and the real world, and how on the real world, like not I wouldn't say real, but on like the world we're in now, people like create these sculptures or altars so that they will be there in the dream world, so that they can access them in the dream world and use them for spiritual purposes, for gatherings, for things like that. And that's why that was her explanation of why there's so many pyramids, like Mayan, Aztec, Inca pyramids. They were for just ritual here, but also for gathering in the dream world as well too. And she told me that everything we build here that has a beneficial spiritual purpose creates an equal but even greater beneficial spiritual purpose on that side of the veil as well. And then that, like, I came back a week later and the shop was disappeared, so it was like very unusual experience for me. It was like maybe she shifted into the dream world just to talk to me for that one day. I had never seen that shop before, and I'd been in that mall like 40 times and never seen it. And like I would have bought the Zachariah Sitchin book if I had seen it there before. And then I came back a week later and there's nothing there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think again, you know, like that this topic, it is something we can get into a little bit here, but definitely save it for another time. I agree that I feel like a lot of the major megalithic structures are what you said are actual anchors that exist about things. Oh, okay, sorry, I just wasn't sure my computer froze there. You know, literally things, you know, like pyramids. Pyramids would be an obvious one, like Stonehenge, things like that. There are people who like talk about like meeting up at Stonehenge within the astral planes, and how on the astral planes it's actually like a very active gathering place. Like you can go there and you'll see like all sorts of different spirits and like fairy folk like walking around and gathering there. So I mean, yeah, like it's an interesting, it's a fascinating idea again, just to know that like this is all one big dream. And so I mean our imaginations, like those are, you know, that's how we create within it. And you know, whether you're just talking about using your imagination to physically build things with your hand or using your imagination to create things within your mind, ultimately it's like a correlating process. So I mean it takes both essentially. So I mean let's create with the hands of our mind, so to speak. So I mean that's where meditation comes in, and that's what we're going to do right now. And again, you know, for people who have tuned into previous broadcasts, you know, like this is literally something that we try to do at the end of every broadcast, where we just do a short meditation, focus on our visual senses, and bring ourselves into that field. So everybody who's listening to this, which will be thousands of people in the future, will be able to put their direct intention, even just for a few minutes, onto visualizing this tree in a field with a paradigm shift sigil above it. And then from there, the next step is encouraging you guys to think about this during the day, and ideally even to think about it while falling asleep. So you can sort of take this meditation as a precursor to your own version of the meditation that you can do while falling asleep. So it's very simple. It's like starting in a field, bringing your senses into the awareness, and then approaching the tree and connecting with it, and then kind of making it your own beyond there. So we'll definitely get into that into the next minute. Before we do, I just wanted to check in. Does anybody else have anything that they want to add, or any other questions or anything?
I just wanted to know where I can find the paradigm shift sigil.
Yeah, okay, so I just posted a link in the Sive chat, and you can actually see like the actual image there. So does that work for you? And I did post a link into the live chat on the website. And again, you know, if people are listening to this, go to the paradigmshiftcentral.com and just check out the link for the dream class for June 28th. And if you guys actually notice within the graphics of the image, for those of you who are paying attention, you notice that from class to class, the portal is actually changing. So like there's like a different energy around it, and that's like something that's like changing from week to week. So that's like bringing in more reflection of our developing imagination through like the subtle changes of digital graphics that we're doing to tell this story. So like as like this class progresses, like in months from now, the portal will continue to activate, and again, like that's a reflection of us intentionally activating it with our thoughts and with our minds and with our shared vision. So yeah, this is all like very, very exciting, I'd say. So yeah, okay. Does and I just want to say Dominic was just asking Dominic was just asking a few questions in the chat. Dominic, I suggest if you get a chance to go back and check out a little bit of the episode earlier. I was just asking his dream recall is he's having difficulty with it if it has something to do with smoking cannabis, and we were just saying that yeah, we did talk about that earlier, and either try switching to edibles or not smoking for a bit and noticing and he was also asking if there are any supplements that you found that induce dream states when you pass out, and we had talked about not necessarily supplements, but we had talked about specific plants, and again, so some of those were catmint, catnip, valerian root, lemon balm, mugwort, and also passion flower and blue lotus, and a few other ones, and even...
I'll add melatonin to that as a
I was about to say melatonin.
Because it is a tryptamine.
Yeah, and melatonin is something that can be purchased at like Shoppers Drug Marts or pharmacies and things like that usually. It just with perfect timing, I just want to give a shout out to our good friend Paul, who just swung into the broadcast. So Paul, how's it going? Good to see you. Go ahead, you can just unmute yourself for a second.
Yep. Hi guys, how you doing? All good. I've just woken up, so it's 6 a.m. here.
Oh, beautiful! You can see the sun shining through. That's awesome. Well, perfect. We're about to go to sleep. Paul's waking up. As long as that's good. We're switching shifts here. That's right. It's just like, we go to sleep, you wake up. The dream is always continuing. So.
Yeah. Very much so.
Definitely. Cool, guys. Okay, so just before we get into the meditation, which we'll do, I just want to go over some basic community things. One of the main things that I want to mention is that the next broadcast will be okay, that's why I was confused. I was just like, what day are we on? Are we on Tuesday or Wednesday? But it's like past midnight, so yes, now we are on Wednesday. The next live broadcast will be on Thursday, June 30th, and that will be a Paradigm Shift admin meeting, or sorry, not a Paradigm Shift admin meeting. That will just be a regular Paradigm Shift team building hangout. So that will be a place to just allow the conversations to go wherever they need to. Whereas this broadcast is more specific about dream exploration, the Paradigm Shift team building hangouts are really about anything, but also focusing on the creation of conscious media, the ongoing development of the project, creating Paradigm Shift communities, and just a chance to be able to come and talk and practice metaphysical discussion, connect as a community, talk about the projects that we're working on, and just continue to support each other. So that's open to anyone. Anybody can join that. And as you can find the past team building hangouts on the website as well. And then the next week's broadcast, which will be on Thursday, which will be the Paradigm Shift Destiny School, is going to be on the topic of sacred geometry. So that's something that we're going to get into, and that will be a little bit more visually based. But we'll get into some of like the esoterics, symbols of like how sacred geometry appears, what it means, what it is telling us, different cultures that it's appeared in. So I encourage you guys to do a little bit of research related to sacred geometry and ancient symbols, and feel free to bring that into the presentation for the Paradigm Shift Destiny School, which again will be on the Thursday following this Thursday, which is, my calendar isn't working right now, but that would be on the 6th, on July 6th-ish, I believe. So just double check that, though. The event calendar is on the main website, and you can find that there. Other information that I just want to mention with you guys is that earlier in the show you would have heard me mention the new video that I released as a preview of my experience working with 5 grams of the sacred mushrooms, and I released a secret preview for that, which is just 6 minutes of essentially a 3-hour long documentation, and the 6-minute version is found on my YouTube, though it's currently unlisted. So if you want to get the link for that, please just feel free to send me a message on Facebook, and I'll sort of be posting that in a few places just to make sure that it's I just have to be really, like, honestly, like, my reason for this is just I have to be careful to make sure that, like, my family doesn't blatantly see it. So I'm like, that's part of why I gotta be, like, sort of strategic with it. I just gotta, like, keep it off the radar so, like, my parents don't see me posting videos about my 5-gram psychedelic experience, you know. I just gotta do it that way. So, but anyways, so the 3-hour version of it, though, is actually going to be uploaded tonight, and that is going to be available specifically for the members of the Patreon, the team, the Paradigm Shift Central team Patreon. And the Paradigm Shift Central team Patreon is doing excellent, and we are almost at our goal of 600 by the end of the month, which is literally just in the next couple days. And you can find that at patreon.com/Brendon Culliton, or just go to paradigmshiftcentral.com/donate, and you'll see a link there to the monthly support squad. And again, so when you sign up for that, it gets you the shifter booster kit, which comes with as many shift buttons as you ask for, and some free hug signs and all sorts of cool tools to be able to help you accelerate the shift, and gives you the access to some of the oh my goodness, my thing is glitching out right now. Can you guys still hear me? Sorry, okay, hold on.
Yeah, still hear you.
Hold on.
So.
Okay,
yes.
Yeah, no, it's just like my computer's like running out of RAM right now, and honestly, like, this window just completely glitched out on me. So this is, okay. Very peculiar indeed. You guys can still hear me, though? Just confirming?
Yeah, still hear you.
Maybe?
Still.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, because my
Yes.
Windows. Thanks, guys. Yeah, my Windows like totally glitched out. Like, I can't see buttons on the inside of the screen anymore. Okay, that's awesome. All right, so that's so weird, but we'll try to make do. And like, I can't see the button to like stop the broadcast right now. It's like a blank screen with like half my like camera available. So weird. Yeah, it was just because my computer's running out of RAM apparently, because I tried to open up a new window. Nonetheless, though, we're still running, and that's important. So again, I just want to give a huge shout out to everyone signed up for the Team Patreon, and remind you guys, if you want to be able to continue to help support the ongoing free broadcast of this project, to sign up for the Team Patreon for as little as $3 a month and get the Shifter Booster Kit, which comes with as many shift buttons as you ask for, and as I mentioned, the exclusive access to the 3-hour documentation of my journey with 5 grams of psychedelic sacred mushrooms. So very cool to be able to use that as a way to be able to help support the entire community. And right now we are at about 580, and again, working up to about 600 by the end of the month, and then our next goal with that will be up to 700 by the end of July. And the funds from that just help us to be able to help support the ongoing aspects related to the project, including production and the like ultimately awesome aspects of the project, which will include more free shift buttons for the community, and the Paradigm Shift Love Tour, and supporting the Journey to Lucidity movies. And I'll just mention this now, I'm going to do as best as I can to be able to get Journey to Lucidity 3 online before my birthday. So that's literally in like less than, in just about 18 days. My birthday's on July 18th. I'm going to do as best as I can to get a version online. And again, that early version will be exclusive to the Team Patreon members as well. So if you want to get the early access to that, then you can sign up for that. Sorry, what's that, Andrew?
Are you a Leo?
I am a Cancer, so
okay.
July 18th.
26th.
So. Oh, right on. Awesome. Yeah, so I'm right on the cusp of Leo, so totally cool. Yeah, and speaking of Cancer, I just want to give a special shout out. It was my mom's birthday yesterday, so happy birthday, Mom. I love you. It's funny because I give a shout out to her in my like psychedelic experience video. So, anyways, okay, guys. So again, thank you so much. Much love to everyone signing up for the Team Patreon. Do that when you can. Help us be able to create an epic project ongoing into the future and supporting all the people who we are not even connected with. So, conscious media, free conscious media. You guys know it, and this is some awesome stuff that we got going on here. So with that said, let me just check in. Does anybody else have any questions or anything that they would like to mention for the community at this point? And then we'll get into our closing meditation.
Only as your mum's one of my fans, say I thought you said hi.
Oh. Okay, Paul says hi to my mom. Cool. Cool. Okay. Yeah, my computer's just like really glitched out right now, but this is so peculiar. Okay. All right, that's all right. We'll make do. Okay, guys. So with that said, let's just go into our closing meditation, and then we'll be wrapping up this broadcast. And again, reminding everyone that the recording for this will be online afterwards, and please continue to share this with your friends, either this episode or go back and listen to past episodes. And definitely go back and listen to the global meditation that we did of the Transformational Festival Dream Journey. And yeah, that was a really good one. So, okay, guys, so let's just go into a very short meditation. So I just invite everyone to get nice and still. Just relax their shoulders. Just straighten up their spine, just as if someone's pulling a little string from the top of your head. And reflecting again, what we're doing is taking a moment to bring our attention to visually directing our imagination, to intentionally directing our imagination to bring ourselves into the presence of this dream tree space so that we continue to create it, put energy towards it, and return to it within the dream space. So let's just begin with a simple connection to the breath. So gentle inhales through the nose, and gentle exhales through the nose or the mouth. And again, gentle inhales through the nose, and gentle exhales. And just connecting with the rhythm of your breath, allowing the inhale to slowly move in, and the exhale to slowly move out. And we'll slowly bring our awareness to our imagination as we bring ourselves into the presence of a field. And the tree is off in the distance. And so let's just bring our sensations into the dirt underneath our feet, and feeling the grass on the tips of our fingers, and feeling the winds gently cooling our skin, and feeling the sun gently warming our body. And from here, let's actually float our way towards the tree. So gently allowing ourselves to imagine lifting our feet up out of the dirt, and then gently floating ourselves towards the tree. And as we do, we see the tree take form. And this tree can look whatever it needs to look like for you, as magical as you want to make it. And as you get closer to the tree, you can gently just float your way around it. And above the tree, you observe the paradigm shift sigil, again, looking like a portal, a north star, a beacon. And you see an aura around both the tree and the sigil. And so just imagining, putting your intention towards visualizing what this tree looks like, what this space looks like in this moment, making the tree as magical as you choose. And slowly we'll drift our way towards the tree. And as we do, we'll gently bring our feet back onto the ground. And even taking a moment here to just acknowledge the presence of others around the tree. And just acknowledging ourselves around the tree. And so, to make things a little interesting, we'll collectively imagine ourselves all here together as one, standing in a circle around the tree. And then together, we'll gently imagine ourselves holding hands with the person next to us, another shifter from another part of the dream, here together in the shared imagination. And standing around the tree, just take a moment to look at it, and everywhere you look at it, just adding focus to it. So you acknowledge the bark of the tree, you acknowledge the leaves of the tree, you see the leaves moving. And then what we'll do is we'll move ourselves into group hugging the tree. And so just slowly walking our way closer to the tree, open your own arms, open your own heart, and just allow yourselves to hug the tree, to connect with the tree, having your chest against it, and just being able to imagine everyone doing the same. So imagining the trunk being as big as it needs to be for everyone to just be gathered around this tree, though numbers are just arbitrary at this point. And then what we'll do here is we'll just add some extra love and manifestation and intention into this moment by simply doing a group Om together a few times, allowing the Om to carry our intention of solidifying, crystallizing this space within our shared imaginations. So together, as we're hugging the tree, before we Om, just take a moment here to acknowledge the texture of it, feeling the texture of the trunk on your chest, on your arms, and even just on your face. And you can even just imagine yourself gently placing your forehead, your third eye against the tree, and just expressing your gratitude to it in the same way you would hug any tree of any forest, just thanking it for standing tall, for standing strong, and for teaching us more about ourselves. And so together here, let's just take a simple breath in and out, and then after that, we'll just do a shared Om together. So another gentle breath. Feeling the heartbeat of the tree, feeling the heartbeat of the group, feeling your heartbeat as the heartbeat of the tree. And so with one more inhale, we'll begin with a group Om, and I encourage you to either Om either internally or vocalize it as much as you're comfortable with. So gentle inhale and Om. Taking another breath here, and as we do that, just imagining a sense of gold light filling the tree as a reflection of our intention, filling it with love, filling it with our gratitude, solidifying it into this shared dream space. And so reminding ourselves that the Om carries our intention, and our intention in this is gratitude and crystallization. So we'll do 2 more Oms. So again, gentle inhale and exhale Om. And one more. Inhale. Exhale Om. Good. And just take another moment here, connecting with the tree, still having your forehead up against it if you choose. Even just hugging it a little bit tighter, expressing your gratitude to it, hugging it as if it is your friend, your family, because it is. And even just giving it a gentle kiss if you choose to, just to show your appreciation. And then from here, gently, when you're ready, stepping back from the tree. And you take another moment here to acknowledge those who have gathered around the tree with you, seeing the other shifters, looking them in the eyes, acknowledging them, the fellow dreamers within the dream. And then from here, we'll simply just allow ourselves to do what feels right for us, and allowing the story to be left open for how you choose to continue it beyond this moment within your own practice, within your own dream space. So I just invite you to slowly allow yourself to imagine simply standing under the tree or choosing to sit and returning into a place of meditation within this meditation. And with another few gentle breaths, we'll slowly bring our awareness back into this physical reality as we conclude this short meditation. So still imagining yourself at the tree so that you can imagine yourself returning to the tree in the place which you are now, where you are now. So again, just connecting with gratitude, just taking another moment to look up at the tree, appreciating being underneath its leaves, feeling the energy of it, feeling the pulse being sent of it, calling in the other dreamers to this shared space of gathering in celebration. And so let's just take a couple more breaths. In gratitude. And slowly, when you're ready, you can gently bring your awareness back to your physical body by wiggling your toes and your fingers. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes, return your awareness to the space around you. Cool. Well, thanks again, guys. And yeah, every time we sort of do that little meditation, it's a little bit different. I didn't really go too in depth with that one. I sort of kind of scratched the surface, but that's okay. But yeah, again, just thank you so much, guys, for taking the moment to add your energy to that. And again, so imagine that dreams tree as you fall asleep, and then when you become lucid in a dream, like even train yourself to do this in the waking state. Like try teleporting to the dream tree, because that's something you can do within your dreams. You can teleport places just by thinking about it. You can be like, I want to go to the pyramids of Egypt. You can teleport there. You can be brought there. So you can be like, to the dream tree, and then you bring yourself there. So it's something that we can work towards. And again, I'm looking forward to being able to meet each other there. So I just want to give a shout out to Harmony and her little ones. You guys are beautiful. Honestly, my computer's glitching out. I can't really see everyone properly, but I can see you guys there. So hello, little ones. It's awesome. It's awesome to see the family getting involved with the dream exploration process. So you guys inspire me. Cool. So just open up the microphone if you guys have anything to share, even just anything about that practice, even just that short meditation. If there's anything specific, please feel free to jump in and anything.
I want to steal it before anyone else. I'm sorry. I want to steal this before anyone else.
Yeah, go for it, Kyle.
The tree, man. Actually, doing that with the trees, man. No, doing that right there. Brings me totally going to the tree. Connecting with the person that I put there meditating, connecting with that meditating me at the tree in the meditation, brings me back to such a nice place within this reality. It taps me into the right frequency, and this has been my big thing lately, is tapping into the highest frequency dimension, the highest aspect of thought process with the purest intention that you possibly can each day. And going to the tree and that place that we created together does that on a level that's like very, very grand. And I was just reminded of it because lately, for the past couple of days and through the weekend, I've had to do a lot of hard work. Doing a lot of hard work can put you, you got to do a lot of decompressing. After you do hard work, you have a lot of decompressing to do before you can bring yourself back to that state where you can be calm, balanced, and cool. But going to the paradigm tree and connecting to the you that's meditating there, the you that's there, connecting to going there and sitting at the tree and meditating there brings me back to the right dimension, the right plane of thought, the right frequency and intensity of vibration and the level of vibration, frequency, everything.
Mm-hmm.
Just so perfectly on point, and I love what we're doing here, man.
Cool, man. Yeah, and definitely, like, I really appreciate you sharing that, because, you know, like, for people who during the day, like, feel free to use that tree as an anchor to bring you into a place of, like, calmness and in your own little Zen garden, or, you know, like your own little happy place, like in, you know, Happy Gilmore or whatever, like that. You know, go to your happy place, and it's like, go to the dream tree and just, like, chill out there for a minute, you know, and literally, like, if you can feel a presence of energy, like, that's not just you, like, making it up, like, that's literally because, like, all of us are, like, collectively, like, anchoring our energy into that. So I mean, yeah, like, it's a very exciting idea, and yeah, it's only going to get more exciting as the project continues to unfold, and we're still just in the early stages of it. But I really feel like, you know, like, this is something that we're almost approaching from, like, a scientific idea, in the sense of, you know, like, there's an objective to this, there's something that can be verified, and down the road it will be verified. And yeah, again, for me, like, that's a big motivation behind wanting to be able to achieve lucidity, so that I can consciously be in that place where I'm just like, okay, I'm lucid, what do I want to do? I want to go to the dream tree, you know, and then to, like, be able to repeat that, and then to be able to see what happens. Because, like, believe me, guys, there's a bigger story going on here, and the dream space is, like, asking for our presence. Like, there are things that, like, need our attention, and it's not just at the dream tree. It goes deeper than that. And again, that's the story that we're still opening up to. So yeah, so thanks again, Kyle. I appreciate it. Paul, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, well, you know, the whole thing, you know, the dream tree, the whole thing of trees. Trees are, in the ancient knowledge, trees are spiritual beings permanently in meditation. You've said it before, the trees, as above, so below. The tree is a universal sign for the Torah field, the sacred geometry of, you've got the roots going down into the earth, connecting with Gaia, the yin. You've got the branches reaching out towards the heaven. You've got continuous circulation of yin and yang, which combines creates Tai Chi. So it's the Torah field. So when you're connecting with your dream tree, you're connecting with the path, the bridge between the. Yes, I see it's on your back. Yeah, you're connecting with the spiritual. You're connecting with the dream world and the real world, because lots of different societies have said it. But what the Taoist, one of the Taoist things they say is, what is the difference between this reality and the dream reality? And their belief is there isn't. Is they're both illusions. They're both connections. So lucidity, being lucid in your dreams, but being also lucid in reality, being the creator of your own reality, both in the dream world and this world. It's all good.
It's all love. Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Yeah, no, definitely. Like, I can't imagine us gathering around anything other than a tree as a first idea. Like, trees just, yeah, like, they're such central. They're so pivotal to this whole journey. So, yeah. Anybody else would have anything to say? Andrew, Ali, Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, it was interesting. After the first few steps, I found myself like 3 steps ahead of everything you said. So, like, you would say something, but I had already done it like 3 steps ahead of the time, and it was like I was already there. Like, especially when, like, everyone was connecting hands, like, I had already started to do that, and I wasn't doing it intentionally. I was just kind of following along with what was going on in my mental imagery, but I would do something, and then that was something that, like, you would say like 3 steps later.
That's funny.
I was interested in the sigil that you created, the pillars of Boaz and Yakin. Like, where was the inspiration for that? Where did that come from?
The sigil itself, yeah, like, that's the paradigm shift sigil is something that more or less came to me about like 7 8 years ago, before the project officially started. And yeah, like it was something that like I just like began doodling, and it just sort of evolved over time, and then it's something that is honestly like still revealing itself to me as the project continues to unfold.
There's a lot of Masonic symbolism in it. My family history goes way back. My great-great-grandfather was the Lord Mayor of the City Corporation of London, and also the head Masonic, the Grand Master of the City Corporation of London, and also the French Temple of the Orient, and almost every elder and man in my family is Masonic, so I have a bit of education in that, but I'm not part of that group.
Yeah. Is that London, UK, or London, Canada? By chance?
London, England. London, England. So back then, that was around just the end of the 1700s, and
Andrew. Many people don't realize it is a corporation.
Yeah, it is. It's a corporation of various sort of different symbolic traditions.
Yeah. Which is a topic for another time, definitely. Yes.
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, no, you're right. Like that's again, like that's like something that again, you know, I created this sigil like just like intuitively, and then over time I'm just like, holy shit, you know, like there's a lot of stuff in this. So I mean, it's something more or less that's like ancient and futuristic at the same time. And yeah, I always ask people, because there's not just one answer to it, but I always ask people, what do they see in it, you know? So I mean, for myself, it is like some of the obvious things of some of the words I use for it are like a beacon, a portal, a stargate. It's bringing people together, and the exciting thing is that yes, it carries energy to it. So I don't know if you saw me on the weekend, Andrew, but I was like walking around with a banner of the sigil. But like some people would just like see it and they just be like whoa, like what is that? Like, you know, and so it's just like a thing that's catching people's eyes, and just by them seeing it, they're actually subconsciously like downloading the information associated with the energy of this project, which is why it's like such a powerful idea to be able to work with sigils within our shared dream imagination. So yes, we have the tree, and then the sigil, it's there, and even though we're not always like thinking about it, it is like, again, like this like anchor that's helping like create a gravitational field for our energy to centralize around. But again, you know, like we'll get more into that, the mystery and the excitement related to the paradigm shift sigil, because it is a huge part of this project moving forward. So yeah. No, thanks for bringing that up, Andrew. Okay, so again, getting close to wrapping this up, does anybody else have any closing comments or thoughts? Again, honestly,
Brendon, just one quick thing.
Is that KJ?
Yeah.
Okay. My thing's so glitched out right now. I can't see anything. Go ahead.
You were going, like, we talked a lot about this throughout the evening, but the one word I didn't hear mentioned with respect to frequencies and sounds is cymatics. And so, like, we don't have time to talk about it now, but definitely cymatics is relating to the dream state, and, you know, working with mantras and working with frequencies, and understanding that, you know, matter is nothing other than vibrational energy.
Yes.
So just next time we get onto that topic, we should, I meant to say more about it earlier, but the oming and the mantra work and the frequency work, that is extremely important with respect to just separating the soul from the body, and then that, of course, that goes back to dreams, right? Out of body experiences.
Yeah, that can be a great topic to bring into the team building hangout this Thursday, actually, if it comes up there. So yeah, no, I agree. Somatics is like such a awesome like thing to connect a lot of ideas through. So yeah, definitely. Cool. Okay. Anybody else? Again, just like thoughts, comment, feedback. I hope you guys all had fun tonight. Did you guys have fun tonight? Did you guys learn a couple things?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, thank you for running into me like at solstice.
Thank you, man. I'm glad we planned it. So yeah. No, and honestly, Andrew, yeah, thank you for joining in with us. It's been a pleasure having you contribute. So, okay, so just double checking, guys, because I can't see like who's muting and unmuting. But anybody else have anything else they want to share? Even just like moment of gratitude or anything? I know I really appreciate you guys being here. So.
I really appreciate being here. I think this is a lot of fun. And I think more people should get involved with their, on their spiritual side.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's good to incorporate that in your life every day.
Yeah.
We
and
are
again,
spiritual beings in a human experience.
Totally. Yeah, and definitely, again, for the people listening to the recording of this, always inviting you to be involved with future broadcasts, be it team building hangouts, be it dream classes, be it Definitely School, or be it the Paradigm Shift admin hangouts, which again, like, I know we didn't mention at the start, but like a big part of this project is encouraging people to create the physical Paradigm Shift communities where they are, which again, focus on the ongoing open-minded discussion meditation groups. So that's something we want to be able to help encourage people to get involved with as well. So digital and physical space is such an important thing within this ongoing story. So cool. Okay, anybody else? If not, then we are ready to wrap this up. So with that said, I believe we are ready to wrap this up, and I'm going to try and end the broadcast, even though, like, honestly, guys, you have no idea how glitched out my screen is right now. Like, I can't see where the stop broadcast button is, so I'm just, like, shooting in the dark here. But I'm just going to click around until I get it eventually, but nonetheless, we are ready to wrap this up. So, again, thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of this, and, again, check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/SkullBabylon, go to ParadigmShiftCentral.com, browse more of the website, sign up, create your own quest journal to practice documenting your spiritual journey, tune in for future broadcasts, check out previous ones, continue the conscious conversations where you are. The team Patreon links are on the website. Keep it shifty, and as always, we shall see you guys in the future. So everyone join me in saying farewell to the internet, so let's unmute ourselves and say goodbye and wrap this party up and go to sleep. So good night, everyone.
Goodbye, all.
Love you guys.
Dream well.
Lucid.
Until next time, everyone.
All right, guys. We love you, and we'll see you at the tree. So until next time, guys, peace, one love, and as I said, see you in the future. And stopping broadcast. Did it stop? Did I click the stop button?
No, we're still live.
Still going.
Is it a stop button yet?
Still live.